Chapter 1075. During the attack and defense battle, Han Dong was slacking the entire time. Since he had a rough idea of the purpose of the Church of the Vortex, Father Lysos, Han Dong was even more determined to be a spectator. Without fighting or exhausting his stamina, he tried to conserve as much stamina as possible. During this time, Han Dong leaned against the window and observed the green plague spreading through the streets. This is the plague released by the fifth origin substance, the revered eugenus. The infected person's body will grow eyeballs. Both the internal organs and the external skin will transform into eyeballs. When the eyeballs cover 90% of the body, the person will die completely. Moreover, about 10% of the body will transform into an eyeball mass. The mass floated in the air and acted as eugenus' external compound eyes to observe the situation on the streets and control the overall situation. That's interesting. Just as Han Dong was curious about the fifth origin substance, the revered eugenus, Count, whose consciousness coexisted with Han Dong, immediately transmitted his voice in an attempt to dispel Han Dong's dangerous thoughts. This thing isn't interesting at all. Just the Shuga's hybrid demon alone is enough to make one's scalp tingle. Shuga's isn't an innate existence. Instead, it's a living product created by a group of ancient hybrid demons with abnormally developed brains and the most advanced hybrid demon technology of the time. They're better than average in all aspects, and all of them are brutal and strange. The fifth origin substance, eugenus, is a special existence among them. Rumor has it that his mind is connected to the ancient hybrid demons, or that he has inherited their thoughts and mastered an ancient secret technique. It's because of the existence of the secret technique that the silent instructors on the streets can't completely ban the hybrid demon. Don't come into contact with him. In your human terms, this guy is also a monster in the eyes of us hybrid demons. Count, I'm even more interested now that you've said that. Don't. If you come into contact with that monster, this Count will never help you in the future. Seeing Count so terrified, Han Dong wanted to laugh. Of course, eugenus' danger could be seen from the plague that spread through the streets. The reason Han Dong wanted to come into contact with this monster was because he had the ability to communicate with the monster, the plague, and the eye. Suddenly, Han Dong sensed something strange and immediately looked out of the window. Coincidentally, there was a maelstrom instructor who was infected with the plague downstairs. Due to his severe injuries, his eyeballs had already spread all over his body. Crack! The body exploded, and an independent eyeball floated out and began to search the empty building Han Dong was in. Han Dong had no intention of running away. He quietly waited for the eyeball to arrive. When the eyeballs, which could make people feel fear, floated into the room and looked at Han Dong, they did not show any hostility. They immediately recognized Han Dong's human characteristics and left. Sure enough, Miss Sally has already informed him. As long as we don't provoke him, nothing will happen. Count, guard my body. If there's anything wrong, remember to call me. I need to go to the brain to deal with something. All right. Blood vessels weaved. A blood dog, whose whole body was weaved with blood vessels and tentacles, with eyeballs and sharp mouths embedded in the gaps, quickly formed. The underworld blood skull was hung on the blood dog's neck as a collar. Due to the divine blessing from the epic equipment, the blood dog formed with Count as the main consciousness could barely match the Yandalo's hound in terms of physique, pollution, and basic attributes. To ensure that nothing went wrong, Han Dong's consciousness went to the faceless prison. There was still a very important matter in the brain that had not been dealt with. It was the participant corpse that Han Dong had collected from the lowest level of the Thorn and Thorn Church. Crack, crack, crack. As soon as his consciousness came to the cell, Han Dong heard an unusually loud whipping sound. In the independent cell where Toga was, a headless corpse wearing a golden robe with a thorny pattern on the surface was lying on the ground. In Han Dong's eyes, this kind of suffering thorns might be a good match for Togu. It could even be said that, in the whole of London, no one could find an individual more suitable for thorns than Togu. Suffering for Togu was a necessity in life, and he needed and enjoyed suffering. The stigmata thorns, as a special, holy grade product, also needed an individual to accept and play a role through suffering. At present, Togu secretly pulled out a core thorn from the neck of the corpse and whipped his own body. This special thorn could pierce Togu's copper skin and iron bones and have a deep integration with the internal flesh. Handong also noticed a special point. While Togu was whipping himself and enjoying the pain, the thorns in the participant corpse slowly responded. They did not grow recklessly, but slowly wrapped around Togu's two legs, pierced the skin, and merged with Togu's body. Togu, this guy. Handong originally wanted to communicate with Togu, but in the current situation, there was no need to communicate at all. It might even disturb Togu's suffering. Togu was not a small character, but a hell monk with a special identity in hell. At the same time, he was also chosen by the mayor as a special member of Dry Town. If there was an opportunity in front of him, there was no need for Handong to remind him. He would naturally seize it. Handong hid in the dark and secretly observed Togu's enjoyment process. As Togu became more and more immersed in suffering, the thorns in the corpse slowly covered his whole body, resonating and blending with his body. Clang, clang, clang. As a characteristic of hell monks, the hell chains in Togu's body began to make noises. The hell chains were as important to Togu as the tentacles were to the hybrid demons. It was a part of him, and even an important part that supported his body and the release of his ability. It was the symbol of the suffering. The thorns and the chains in Togu's body are actually merging. This is a deep-level formation. Will it transform Togu into a saint-level life form? Or can Togu control the thorns and still maintain the essence of a demon? The scene in front of him was far beyond Handong's expectations. With the passage of time, the corpse on the ground was constantly drying up. The thorns that existed in the corpse seemed to see Togu as a better carrier, and almost completely merged the main thorns into Togu's body. Hell chains plus stigmata thorns with Togu's self-flagellation as a catalyst. It was producing an extremely terrifying product of suffering, almost causing Togu to faint from the pain. Are those nails? Handong used a little magic eye to observe in depth. In some of the deeper regions in Togu's body, the fusion had already been completed. Nails with the characteristics of thorns and steel grew out between the layers of flesh. These nails seemed to be able to bring great pain to the individual, and even Togu was faintly twitching. At this moment, Handong felt a wave of heat hit him. Whoosh! Magma splashed. A fiery bronze hell iron gate suddenly rose from the ground of the prison cell, facing Togu. The top was also decorated with long demon horns and flaming skulls. Although it looked like a hell gate, the gate had the same tree of truth imprinted on it. The Gate of Truth, hell version? This guy Togu has reached the atavistic body. I can't call it that. There should be a corresponding system in hell. As Togu reached out to touch the gate, its form changed. The newly fused hell nails became the main composition of his body. The saw blade inlaid in his head disappeared and turned into hell nails that grew out from under his skin and were evenly distributed on his face. Evolution. Great Demon. Chapter 1076. Hell World was a large world in the Black Towers plan. It was an independent world with a complete system and did not need to rely on external objects to exist. Using the level of the hybrid demons as a reference, it was as follows. Below hybrid demons, ordinary demons, wild monsters. Imps, hell beasts, newborn demons. Demons, soldiers, mature demons. Usually with prefixes based on their characteristics, such as ashes, pain, giant axe, atavistic demons, great demons, mythical demons. Legend has it that the Hell World system can support a total of 72 demons. Only when the original demon god dies will the new demon god have a chance to ascend. Old King, King of Hell, based on the demon god's foundation. After passing the cruelest and most dangerous test in Hell, one can take the Demon King's crown in the deepest part of Hell. Togu, who was once Dray Town's number 8. He had already reached the level of a demon. At the same time, Togu belonged to a special group in Hell. He was a Hell monk, that pursue the path of suffering. Currently, with the help of this corpse that contained the stigmata thorns, due to the resonance of the suffering attribute, the two perfectly fused and successfully broke through. Togu relied on his strong will to control the stigmata thorns. He did not turn into a saint-level being during this process and continued on the path of a hell demon. As a result, a gate of truth in hell opened for him, and he advanced into a great demon. Togu, you did well. Slowly get used to your body. The next London game will need your help. Togu was very clear that this opportunity came entirely from Han Dong. He immediately knelt down and said with the most reverent demon voice, "I will bear all the pain for my master. I will also use the most intense pain on the enemy." Good. This unexpected situation made Han Dong overjoyed. Toga's advancement at this moment had a great significance. It was different from Count. Toga's essence was demon. He would not be suppressed by the abilities of saint-level beings. He would definitely be able to play a decisive role at the crucial moment. The demon advancement took a whole hour and a half. The attack and defense battle that took place in the streets had entered a white-hot stage. The teachers who were not strong enough, atavistic demons and below, were basically all killed. Even some high-level teachers died because of the origin bodies. Correspondingly, a portion of the hybrid demons died during the battle. Because these hybrid demons were pure breeds, they had never entered the destiny space and had never interacted with other worlds. In the face of this kind of power from another world, their adaptability were poor, and they were constantly suppressed by this saint-level life form. In a situation where his injuries continued to accumulate and he was unable to receive treatment, he eventually died in battle. Of course, the main reason they had died was because they had encountered a few high-level instructors. Otherwise, with the powerful life force of the atavistic hybrid demons, it would have been very difficult for them to die. When Han Dong returned to the empty building, nothing had happened. Only Count was sitting at the side, licking its paws in boredom. It should be about time. Most of the ordinary teachers on the street are dead. The entire street that the church used as a defensive line had been completely contaminated by the hybrid demons. It was not just eugenist plague. The streets were also filled with biological eggs produced by other atavistic creatures. They were secreting stinky bodily fluids, grotesque insect nests, and swollen lumps of flesh that blocked the buildings and alleys. The next stage should be coming soon. Perhaps they will notify us, or perhaps they will need us to proceed to the next stage on our own. At this moment, Han Dong immediately received a telepathic message from Sally. "Where did you go just now? I can't even contact you with my consciousness. I took a nap." "You, forget it. Your inference was correct. Father Lysos was indeed using the London game to filter out the players. The offensive and defensive battles that took place here eliminated all the players who weren't strong enough. The next stage had begun, and the priest took the initiative to open the church door. Hurry to the Big Ben, which is the church's main church. Grimm, Eugenius, and Hope had already entered the clock tower, and many hybrid demons had entered at the same time. Logically speaking, whether it was the crazy Grimm or the competitive Hope, it was impossible for them to behave in the church. However, there was no sound from inside the clock tower for a long time. I suspect that Father Lysos has the king-level title deed of the City of London in his hands. He has long since used the title deed to carry out a large-scale renovation of the main church. Perhaps there's a deeper space inside. Or perhaps, as you said, he has already established a connection with the saint-level world, causing the clock tower where the gate of destiny exists to undergo a complete change, or even become a part of the saint-level world. Hurry up and come over. Okay, Miss Sally, you go in first. I will still act as an official instructor and go in alone. Okay. As Sally stepped into the Big Ben, Han Dong could clearly feel that the connection between the two had been greatly weakened. Spatial isolation. If it is as Sally speculated, the interior of the clock tower has completely changed and even turned into the environment of the saint-level world. The situation is slightly troublesome. Once the world erosion occurs, once we are in danger, it will be difficult for the old kings outside to intervene. But Since the old kings are always watching here, they should be thinking more deeply than I am. Most of the silent instructors had died in the attack and defense battle. The forbidden space was lifted. A pair of bone wings grew out of his back and carried Han Dong to a safe height. As expected, there are still hybrid demons guarding here. They know that some of the instructors who escaped will quietly sneak back to the Big Ben. They plan to intercept here, or they don't want to compete with the original demons, so they simply spend some time outside. Han Dong, who was flying high in the sky, used his demon eye to accurately capture the 3 atavistic demons near the Big Ben. One of the hybrid demons was wrapped in a giant cloak and floating in the air. Flat, transparent tentacles extended out from the cloak, and at the same time, they were emitting ultrasonic waves in all directions. There was another one that looked like a bull, but its body was the size of a tank. It wantonly crawled on the nearby streets, hunting in the most primitive way. The last one was disguised as a tree and stood near the Big Ben. If Han Dong hadn't observed carefully, he might not have noticed it. It looked like an evergreen tree on the outside, but in fact it had many thick roots hidden underground. The roots and tentacles constantly stirred the soil. Once a target approached, it would instantly be entangled by the roots and turned into nutrients. After confirming the movements of the 3 hybrid demons, Han Dong directly swooped down in front of the Big Ben Street. This action attracted the attention of the 3 hybrid demons at the same time. Root-like tentacles had already drilled out from the ground and wrapped around Han Dong's calf. Under the gazes of the 3 atavistic demons, filled with killing intent, the pressure was still quite great. However, Han Dong was someone who had slept on the Bufo's leg before, so this kind of scene was nothing. He had already thought of a countermeasure. Strands of void luster lit up between his legs. Han Dong's unique, void-toed steps took 2 consecutive steps. The first step directly teleported him more than 10 meters away, and the second step entered the Big Ben. Such rapid movements even made the 3 atavistic demons outside the door unable to react. The ghoul that was as large as a tank stuck out a tongue with a skull at the tip and whispered, "It's strange. Why does this person have the smell of a ghoul?" Floating in the air, the transparent hybrid demon, hidden in the cloak, noticed the starlight under Han Dong's feet. Its chubby round head twisted to the side and said in confusion, "Void? Could it be that, apart from those 4, the second prime is also here?" No, there's a huge difference in appearance and ability. Where did this person come from? Chapter 1077. When he stepped through the door of the church, Han Dong felt like he had entered the Destiny realm. London's Gate of Destiny is located in Big Ben. If Father Lessos, who started the rebellion, really stole the king's title deed, then, through the Gate of Destiny, he signed a relevant agreement with the Black Tower or the corresponding participant Saint World. It is really possible to cause world erosion. After all, the title deed is the physical representation of the world's sovereignty. As long as the other party invades the title deed, it can cause world erosion. The situation is a bit complicated. With doubts, Han Dong came inside the church. The scene in front of him vividly displayed the theme of world erosion. What appeared in front of Han Dong was a church space that was cut, stretched, and filled with rectangles by space. In front of Han Dong was a church corridor with no end in sight. There were many rectangular protrusions and pits on the wall. Perhaps it was the effect of space stretching, or perhaps it was a specific style. The most basic style of the corridor was the Gothic church, corresponding to Big Ben. Layers of sharp-ribbed vaults, colorful but impenetrable stained glass, and evenly arranged Roman columns. However, Han Dong, on the other hand, saw some extra soil structure in the tunnel. It was like 2 different scenes in a game that overlapped with each other in a strange way. It was like the land of another world overlapped with the church area. So the air composition, microorganism content, and some spatial parameters were very different from the hybrid demon world. It was enough to show that world erosion had occurred. If the world erosion really happened, Father Lessos will connect the 2 worlds with the Gate of Destiny in Big Ben. This church should be regarded as the junction area. Since the hybrid demons can come here, the real saint creatures can also set foot in this area. Is this the second stage of a screening? Because of the descent of the vortex miracle, not only do we have a chance, the people in the other world also have a chance. In this case, we must treat the next London game as a destiny event. When everyone enters Big Ben, they should be randomly teleported to different channels to avoid meeting each other at the beginning. It is almost equal to find the vortex miracle in the depths of the church. Han Dong, as a vortex instructor, had a certain advantage here. Occasionally, a whirlpool mark would appear on the walls or glass of the tunnel. You can mark your current position by touching the whirlpool to avoid getting lost. He could also determine whether he was heading in the right direction based on the strength of the vortex mark. This function could save a lot of time in the church, where the space was expanded by dozens of times. As Han Dong ventured deeper, the world erosion situation became more and more intense. Other than the penetrating soil, there were also trees that resembled human bodies piercing through the walls. Some of the trees were even in a kneeling position. The scene in front of him combined with what Han Dong had seen since he came to London. He couldn't help but think about what kind of world the saint world would be. At first, he thought of heaven, which was the opposite of hell. After all, the holy mark in the thorns, the holy scar corresponding to the heavy sword, and the Holy Church's method of cultivation. After thinking about it carefully, he immediately ruled out heaven. Firstly, as a demon from hell, Tugu could absorb the stigmata, thorns normally, and even use it to break through. Secondly, heaven and hell were opposites, so the levels of the worlds should be the same. In Han Dong's eyes, although hell was a large world, it was definitely not comparable to the hybrid demon world he was in. The Black Tower, an organization that could control tens of thousands of worlds and operate perfectly, was unable to obtain sovereignty here. This also indirectly showed the strength and high status of the hybrid demon world. Now, the Black Tower seemed to want to use the method of world against world to erode and seize sovereignty. Then, such a world should be equal in level to the hybrid demon world. Or perhaps the Black Tower combined the greater thousand worlds into one and created a special world. According to a part of the description in the stigmata, thorns, an ascetic ignored the pain and crossed the sea of thorns. In the end, he merged with the thorns and ascended to the saint level. Thus, there was a product like the stigmata thorns. The so-called saint world might be a world where everyone can seek the way and become a saint. As long as you focus on a certain thing, a certain path, when you reach the extreme, you can ascend to the saint level. Han Dong thought as he walked through the church that had been stretched into a maze structure. With the guidance of the whirlpool, when he turned into the right side of the passage, a strange aura suddenly interrupted Han Dong's thoughts. A saint-level life form. The first existence Han Dong encountered in the church was not the hybrid demon. Instead, it was a saint-level life form who had come to the junction area through the gate of destiny. A gray windbreaker covered his entire body. He was one-armed and carried an exquisite suitcase. The surface of the suitcase was printed with a large sacred pattern. He was barefoot, and every step he took seemed very light. He did not even feel like he was sticking to the ground. When the one-armed man smelled Han Dong's aura, he immediately turned around. An incomparably strange face came into view. There were no facial features. The face, and even the inside of the entire cranial cavity, were intertwined lines. If one had to make a comparison, it was like hollowing out half of a watermelon and threading it with a needle to connect white threads. The friction between the lines made him speak a language that Han Dong could understand. Vortex Reincarnator, your level is very low. Why are you here? Those who can come to the junction area should be individuals who have come into contact with the gate. You are so weak that you will be killed sooner or later. Why don't you become my servant? I just came here, and I need to study the biological structure of this world. Han Dong had thought that by acting as a member of the church, he could communicate normally with the saint-level life form and even get some information about the other world. Who knew that this person would kill him as soon as they met? This made Han Dong's first impression of the saint-level world become negative. He did not wait for Han Dong to say anything at all. Dozens of white threads that were difficult to see with the naked eye shot directly from this person's face. Void toad steps whoosh. Wherever the white threads went, they only scattered the light of the void left behind by Han Dong. The void flashed. The saint-level life form's head slid down from his neck, and at the same time, a large number of broken white threads floated down. In a flash, standing behind him was a black scythe surrounded by black sand. Its left arm held a spear shaft wrapped in the leather of the dead, exuding the aura of the underworld. Anubis's virtual image in the form of black sand floated behind him. Nicholas in the form of the dead. Han Dong smelled danger and once again used the toad steps to widen the distance, seriously examining the target. He saw that when the black sand of death collided with the white threads, it was difficult to erode them, so much so that the broken white threads reconnected the head back to the neck. The threads rubbed against each other and made a series of uneven sounds. Divinity? You clearly haven't touched the gate yet. What are you? Chapter 1078. Divinity was also divided into high and low levels. Some low-level life forms, such as newborn mantis or knights who had just broken their species, perhaps because of the bloodline in their body or because of the equipment or bloodline given by fate, they could show a little divinity. For example, the female knight who had killed Count with a holy sword, or the early Han Dong, who could cast death magic with Egyptian divinity because he was connected to the arm of Imhotep. But these were only superficial divinity, which was usually called mythical contact in the Holy City. When the Knights of Destiny learned that Han Dong had mythical contact with the death attribute, they also strongly expressed their intention to invite Han Dong. Because of the contact as a foundation, it would provide strong and powerful support for the subsequent door opening. Knights who did not have mythical contact in advance were often difficult to break through. This subtle divinity manifestation in the early stage was called contact. When an individual touched the door of truth, they would understand the truth, and they would have divinity in the true sense which could be used. Whether it was the quality or quantity of divinity, or the quantity of divinity used by an individual, it was not at the same level as contact. Currently, the process of Han Dong cutting off the saint level's head with the sickle of the dead was far beyond the level of contact. Although Han Dong had not touched the door of truth, the divinity he showed was completely up to standard. Squeak, squeak, squeak. The white line was stretched and pulled. The white line carried the head again and quickly connected to the neck. The saint-level life form's attitude completely changed, and he even restrained his killing intent. First, he made a very polite gesture of bowing. The white line between the skulls rubbed at a uniform frequency, making a very comfortable sound. Sure enough, it's not easy to come to the border area. It was also because of my good luck that I was able to draw the test slot and come here. I came to the border area with only one purpose, to find the vortex miracle from your world. Competitors are my enemies. I'm really sorry that I treated you as an ordinary vortex shifter at first. From now on, I will treat you as a peer. My name is Lu Let Hem, and I'm a tailor. After that, the one-armed man tapped the password lock on the surface of the suitcase with his finger. The holy seal on the surface of the box lit up, emitting a white luster that was completely different from the one in London. Waves of divinity, no weaker than Han Dong's left arm, were constantly overflowing from the box. Click! The box opened. Han Dong thought that there would be countless white lines flowing out from the inside. Who would have thought that the things that came out of the box contained an extremely evil aura? Walla Walla, it was like the scene of a slaughterhouse truck unloading goods. Pieces of white meat that seemed to have been bleached crazily flowed out of the box. The total volume of the white meat was much larger than the volume of the box. The surface of each piece of white meat was printed with the same holy seal as the surface of the box, similar to the pork that was stamped with a qualified mark. There were so many of them that they almost filled up the 5-meter space in front of and behind the one-armed man. At this moment, almost all of the white threads in the one-armed man's head overflowed. Using the method of threading needles, they quickly connected all of the scattered white flesh. A gigantic, white, fleshy giant with only an upper body floated behind this person, as if it was a stand-in envoy. The head of the white flesh giant was sunken inwards in the form of a cross, exuding a kind of holy rank characteristic that could dispel and suppress the hybrid demons. All the dead who died on my path will be connected by my holy white thread and become my apostle. You may be a very important part of it. And the characteristics of the whirlpool you carry will help me smoothly get the miracle of the whirlpool that came to your world. The words ended. Under the control of the white flesh apostle, he flew toward Handong at a very fast speed. Wall of the dead, under the dead form. Handong raised his hand and summoned a large number of underworld corpses. Using the black sand crystal as a medium, he built a wall that exuded a strong death aura and sealed the passage in front of him. Ha! The white flesh apostle did not hit the wall, but stuck to the sand wall like glue. This made Handong's expression not very good. But for a second, on the back of the wall of the dead, lines began to overflow. At the same time, at the end of the lines, there was rapid cell proliferation and white fleshy lumps were quickly forming. Obviously, with the white thread as a medium, he first let the thread pass through the sand wall, then transferred the white flesh stuck to the front to the back, and passed through the sand wall. The seemingly complicated process only took 3 seconds to complete. The reconstructed apostle slapped toward Handong's head. The white thread in the palm was like a needle. Since it could penetrate the sand wall, it could also penetrate Handong's body. Once the holy white thread invaded the body, it could not only increase the white flesh inside Handong's body, but it could also change the texture of Handong's flesh. This was the characteristic of the tailor. Count, get ready to help me. Nicholas, this thing has a strong suppressive effect on the hybrid demons. Even the blood dog I created may not be able to block it. I don't need blood dogs here. I only need you to help me draw the sword. I need to verify something. Maybe I can figure out the origin of the holy sword. The white palm was about to fall. Handong actually removed his dead body at this moment, and Anubis divinity also returned to his body. Remove divinity? Such a move made even the tailor. Liu was puzzled, but he was still very happy. It was a good thing to save some time. He didn't notice that a real death aura was approaching. Open the eye. The demon eye was 100% open, and there were even some tentacles floating in the eye socket. Handong concentrated on the observation of the demon eye, and the matter of the holy sword was left to count. The demon I needed to lock onto 2 points. First, the white flesh apostle, the key connection area of the arm area. Second, the tailor. Liu's body structure. Drip. A drop of holy blood dripped from the palm, and when it touched the ground, it instantly formed a small blood sword and stabbed straight into the ground. Handong didn't learn swordsmanship, so he still needed to ask Count for help in the usage of the holy sword. Consciousness synchronization -100%. Blood overflowed from the eye socket, forming a cone-shaped eye shield. A bright red smile appeared in a tearing manner. Before the holy sword was formed, he had already assumed a sword-wielding posture and swung his arms upwards. During this process, the holy sword was formed at an extremely fast speed. Shwa! It smoothly cut into the apostle's body. A large amount of white threads were cut off, and pieces of meat without the support of the white threads quickly fell. Void-toed steps. Liu was shocked that the apostle was injured. A void light flashed in front of him, and the holy sword had already pierced through his body, penetrating his heart that was full of white threads. Holy sword. Why is there holy blood flowing in your body? Chapter 1079. The Heart. According to Handong's previous observation of the corpse thorns, he confirmed the existence of the thorny heart and that the heart was a vital part. It could even perform brain-related functions, which was far more important than the heart for humans. The head was more like a part of the body for these saint-level beings to display their abilities, not a fatal area. In the battle just now, Han Dong fully opened his little magic eye and carefully observed Taylor Lu's heart. He could basically confirm that the heart was a fatal part. He even made a hypothesis that the heart was a vital core organ for saint-level beings. It was related to the foundation of life. However, it was not fatal to injure the heart. The heart was the core of energy supply and the center of control of the white thread. When it was pierced by Han Dong's sword, the white flesh apostle immediately collapsed and turned into scattered white flesh and white threads. Taylor Lu stared at Han Dong in amazement. Compared to his own heart being pierced, he was more surprised by Han Dong's other ability. Even in the saint-level world he was in, it was rare to see an individual like Han Dong who had two different abilities. How can there be saint blood flowing in your body? This sentence confirmed Han Dong's guess. The ancestor of the Hall family accidentally obtained the saint's sword bloodline in the destiny space. The origin was unknown. Now, the saint blood had been transferred to Han Dong's body, but there was still no clue. He only knew that the saint's sword had a strong restraining effect on the hybrid demons. After understanding the characteristics of the saint-level world, Han Dong began to suspect whether the saint's sword bloodline was related to it. Oh, you know about the saint blood? Han Dong wanted to ask some information about the saint blood in a probing way. Who knew? Taylor Lu endured the pain in his heart and suddenly tore off Han Dong's shirt. The black vortex covering the front of his body was revealed. You are a participant of destiny. Strange, you are clearly a life in this world. How can you touch destiny? Moreover, you have also obtained the recognition of the Black Tower. How did you do it? Because you are unwilling to give up the sovereignty of the world. You group of hybrid demons should be forbidden by destiny and unable to carry out the exchange of destiny. Where did you come from? Lu's words made Han Dong understand that the reason why the hybrid demons were rejected by fate was because they did not want to give up the sovereignty of the world. They could only rely on the mythological paths that the hybrid demons had researched and developed. Unlike in the Destiny world, which provided thousands or even millions of routes, participants could still choose the most suitable and favorite route to develop. Furthermore, there were also Destiny events and rewards that corresponded to the level of the Destiny world, which increased the speed of the participant's experience. Me? I'm just a lowly race on this planet and have nothing to do with the hybrid demons. That's why I was able to enter the Destiny space. Can you tell me something about the sacred blood or your world? If possible, I'm willing to let you live. You should be able to sense that I am deliberately suppressing the energy within the sacred sword. If I want you to die, I can do it in an instant. A non-hybrid demon race with high intelligence, living in the hybrid demon world without being tainted by any of the hybrid demon attributes. It is almost impossible for a world to give birth to two completely independent, intelligent races. It seems like your world is hiding a lot of secrets. No wonder the Black Tower would give us such a high reward and let us come here to test the world erosion. Answer my question. Han Dong faintly felt that the other side was deliberately stalling for time. As long as he felt any movement, he would twist the sword hilt. Your question? I'm sorry, I can't leak the secrets of the world, nor can I do it. Han Dong sensed that something was wrong. He decisively activated and twisted the holy sword. However, the sacred sword was stuck in the target's body. While the two of them were talking, Taylor Lu, he was working on stabilizing the heart in front of him. The basic function of the heart had been restored. At the same time, a large number of origin white lines grew from the heart. These white lines were originally growing in the heart and symbolized the Taylor's origin. They were also his most important lines. Their toughness, hardness, and energy were much higher than normal white lines. They tightly wrapped around the sacred sword and suppressed the sacred blood's activity. Fortunately, you should have obtained a sacred blood through third contact, so you don't understand its nature and haven't been to our world. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to suppress the betrayer's blood with just my lines. That was your only chance. It's a pity. Swish, swish, swish. Thousands of lines instantly overflowed from the Taylor's back. It was similar to a cocoon. He intended to wrap the tailor and Han Dong together in the lines and absorb the nutrients from Han Dong's body to fill the gap in the tailor's heart. For a moment, Han Dong's eyes were filled with despair. He wanted to break free, but he found that the white lines from his heart had already wrapped around his hands. It was already too late. Staring at Han Dong's face, which was filled with despair, the tailor's last remaining thread of thought formed a smile. The tailor had already determined that Han Dong was a fish on the chopping board, and there was no way he would have another chance. He gradually relaxed his vigilance. At this moment, a unique iron nail appeared in Han Dong's mouth. Mary, a tongue came out of Han Dong's body and stuck out from his throat. The toad tongue that belonged to Meritus was also the most powerful organ of a toad demon. Many toad demons use their tongues to do manual labor. When it resisted the iron nail, black smoke rose from the surface of the toad tongue just by coming in contact with the iron nail. Meritus endured the pain and ejected the iron nail with her strongest strength. Buzz! The moment it was ejected, it had already surpassed the speed of sound. Whoosh! The iron nail directly penetrated the heart and penetrated the source. Suddenly, the tailor's body was instantly enveloped in hellfire. There was an iron nail piercing out of every 5 centimeters of the tailor's body. Endless pain on the physical level, plus the burning of hell on the soul level. All the white lines were instantly burned. This kind of death process was far more painful than being killed by the holy sword. It wouldn't even die immediately. Han Dong quickly reached out and pressed against the target's chest. Chirp, 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 the tentacles passed through the sternum and came into contact with the heart. According to Han Dong's understanding of the saint-level life form, the brain function was also integrated into the heart. Han Dong wanted to read the tailor's memory and obtain information related to the saint-level world. As expected, the tentacles were disguised as nerve synapses. They wandered between the heart valves. Han Dong found that the structure of the heart was extremely complicated. There was a special area that accumulated brain fluid. The inside should be the storage area of the memory fragments. However, even though Han Dong was already very careful and tried his best to simulate the organs in the tailor's body, but when he tried to pry into the tailor's memory, he still triggered some kind of restriction and was strongly rejected by the power of the world. Damn it! Han Dong decisively chose to retreat. With a toad step, he pulled back more than 20 meters. Boom! The tailor's body that was still burning suddenly exploded like a human bomb. The power of the explosion even sent Han Dong, who was 20 meters away, flying and heavily hitting the wall at the end of the passage. Chapter 1080. Poof! A mouthful of blood mixed with viruses and sand sprayed onto the ground. Due to touching Taylor Lu's heart memory, a certain high-level restriction on the world level was triggered, gathering all the energy in Taylor Lu's body and detonating it. Even though he was 20 meters away, Han Dong was still affected by the powerful explosion. I was too naive. This group of saint-ranked beings who were chosen to go to the border zone must have set up an extremely tight defense line in the memory layer to ensure that they will never leak the world's secrets. I'm afraid that even the old king's memory of them would trigger the restriction. Although the Destiny Realm gave these fellows great rewards, allowing them to come to an unstable world and participate in this probing destiny event, the risk was equally high. I need to rest for a while and wait for my body to recover before continuing the exploration. Han Dong leaned against the wall, his arms drooping on the ground, almost losing all feeling. A large number of white threads were inserted into Han Dong's arms, destroying the flesh. These were the origin of Taylor Lu's white threads, which shot out like needles during the explosion. At that time, Han Dong instinctively used his arms to block in front of him, forming a sand wall and a flesh shield at the same time, but they were all destroyed by the explosion, most of the threads piercing into his arms, and some even burrowing into his body. What he needed to do now was to pull the threads. Intigu was a hidden trump card. Han Dong could only call out 2 girls to help him pull the threads. The moment Meritus appeared, she directly grabbed the white threads on Han Dong's body and pulled outwards. Whoosh! Han Dong almost fainted from the pain. Due to the proliferation of the white threads, the other end had already grown white flesh and adhered to Han Dong's organs. Mary's pull directly shifted the organs, even pulling out a small piece of his kidney, causing Han Dong to roll on the ground in pain. Wah! Gentler, gentler. Seeing this, Merida stuck out her tongue. Who told you not to tell me during the battle that that nail was so hot? It almost burned this feudal lord's precious tongue and left an unerasable scar. As she spoke, Mary extended her elastic, flexible, and highly flexible tongue and licked Nicole's body here and there. He licked her until she clamped her legs together tightly, and her face turned red. Of course, Mary was only doing this because she wanted to use the seawater on Nicole's body to nourish the burn on her tongue. Of course, she was also very interested in Nicole, so it could be considered as a form of caressing. In the current dangerous situation, under Han Dong's gaze, Nicole, who was licked all over, was embarrassed. She tried to interrupt Mary's licking by interrupting. Sister Mary, I'll first use the seawater to moisten the lines in Master's body. Then you can pull them out one by one. Don't worry, he won't die. With the two of them working together, dozens of lines with white flesh on them were scattered all over the ground. There is also seawater mixed with Han Dong's blood on the ground, as if an extremely tragic operation had been carried out. Han Dong, who was sitting against the wall, was already in an extremely weak state, and his body was full of marble-sized wounds. After doing all this, Mary continued to stay in the body as a power bank, and Nicole returned to the cell. Han Dong must always let others think that he was just a person. Because the injury was more serious than expected, Han Dong's consciousness also picked a number of red fruits from the smiling tree, gnawed and swallowed to replenish the lost blood and accelerate the recovery. Although I can't get a lot of information out of them, but at least I understand the importance of the heart to the saint-level life form. And the holy blood does indeed come from the world where these guys live. It must be a super large world with dimensions and scale exactly the same as ours. If I want to go there, I can only wait until I become a fifth order knight and complete the door opening before I'm qualified to go there. Just as Han Dong was resting against the wall to recuperate, the sound of footsteps clearly entered the eardrum, and such a sound made Han Dong puzzled. Because during the recuperation period, Han Dong had fully opened his perception. Once he sensed an enemy approaching, he would quickly move away. Before the injury recovered, he had to avoid all battles. But the current situation was very abnormal. His ears could hear the clear sound of footsteps, and it was the sound of leather shoes stepping on the ground, indicating that the other party was very close. But Han Dong's spiritual perception did not give any feedback. Deep concealment? But why deliberately let out the sound of footsteps? Han Dong slowly opened his eyes and tilted his head to look in the direction of the footsteps. He was already prepared to fight even if he had to endure his injuries, but his heart suddenly trembled. Reflected in his eyes was a man whose head was completely shrouded in darkness. He was wearing a spacious trench coat in the style of a priest's robe. And just as Han Dong heard, a pair of hard-toed leather shoes stepped on the soles of the man's feet. A silver cross hung on the man's chest. He wore white leather gloves on both hands, and the back was engraved with a kind of holy text that escaped black smoke. One hand held a skull chandelier. A convenient iron ring passed through the skull, and a dark candle symbolizing the characteristics of the city of London was placed inside the skull. The other hand held the Dark Bible. Even though the man was already in Han Dong's field of vision, Han Dong's spiritual senses still could not detect him. It probably had something to do with the darkness that shrouded the priest's body. The darkness released by the skull chandelier could isolate all forms of spiritual infiltration. Staring at the arrival of the man, Han Dong felt a strong pressure. Han Dong, who had come into contact with a mythical form, Stone Skull Toad, in the Stone Temple of Mk, immediately confirmed the level of the target, mythical form. Combined with the attire, the identity was naturally inferred. The person who came was the leader of the London rebels incident, the deputy of the London Mother of the Night, divine form, Father Lysos. According to Han Dong's speculation, this Father Lysos had signed some kind of contract with the other world or the Black Tower. As long as he could develop a subordinate who inherited the divinity of the vortex or carry out a certain degree of world erosion, he could completely get rid of the shackles of the hybrid demon world and go to the new world to develop. Originally, he thought that the priest would stay behind the scenes and control everything through the land deed, watching the whole process of raising venomous insects. Who knew that he would coincidentally meet him while Han Dong was injured? However, Han Dong suppressed his panic and tried his best to show a sense of redemption like a teacher meeting a priest. After all, his identity was an official teacher of the Church of the Vortex. The priest stopped for a while in the explosion area. He bent down and picked up a broken white line on the ground. Then a large amount of dark aura overflowed and spread in the current space, roughly simulating what had happened here. Then he continued at the same pace and walked in front of Han Dong with his leather shoes. While chanting prayers, he reached out and touched Han Dong's body. In an instant, Han Dong's injuries healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. These bastards from the other world really do have a serious discrimination mentality. They don't treat Transformers as their own kind at all. You did well. Being able to kill the blacksmith from the other side means that you have the potential to receive divinity. Continue to work hard. I believe that a miracle will happen to you. When that time comes, I will be proud of you. Chapter 1081. When the priest was giving the treatment, he unexpectedly found that the vortex appeared on Han Dong's body in a unique form. None of the teachers he developed had such a situation. The vortex was imprinted on the surface of Han Dong's torso in the form of Embark. It was not like the other teachers, where some of their limbs or organs were distorted visibly. It often showed a high degree of spiraling. Your vortex seems to be a bit special. What kind of characteristics does it give you? Adaptation. I don't seem to be like the other teachers, who can give the vortex characteristics to attack or magic. It provides me with a strong adaptability, allowing my body to control multiple abilities at the same time. When I got the vortex ability, the mixed ability system I learned before also separated on its own, and I can change my style according to different battles. Han Dong made up a lie based on his own facts, and as a whole, he also deduced a state of piety and respect, so the possibility of being exposed was very low. Moreover, because Han Dong killed a saint-level life form here, Father Lysos had a certain favorable impression of him, so he did not doubt such a reasonable explanation. Inclusive of everything, it is indeed in line with the essential characteristics of the vortex. Come with me. Not only was the lie not exposed, but made Han Dong feel like he was chosen. Sir Father, where are we going? You killed a blacksmith from a saint-level world and have reached the standard in the second stage, screening. I will take you directly to the third stage, screening venue, and, at the same time, let you form a suitable team with my elite subordinates. The rules here are not completely set by me, so I can't let you directly touch the miracle. I hope you can pass the final screening and obtain the qualification to touch the miracle with your previous results. Venue? The next stage of the screening will be in the form of a competition. Okay, Han Dong agreed decisively. If he continued to walk down the passage, there was a chance of encountering other individuals. With Han Dong's identity, encountering a saint-level life form or a hybrid demon could cause a conflict. If he was unlucky and encountered those origin demons, the situation would be really troublesome. It was naturally best to be able to ride on the priest's coattails. Moreover, he could use his acting skills to the best of his ability, and maybe he could get some key clues from the priest. The priest faced the wall and flipped the Bible of Darkness open to a certain page. A strange incantation was chanted. The spiral-shaped key floated up, and the priest inserted it into the wall to open a maker's passage, an unobstructed path that led straight to the next level. Walking in the eerie, pitch-black passageway that was dyed with black candles. The priest's head was shrouded in the black fog. Han Dong was playing the role of an ordinary instructor, so it would be impolite for him to use his little magic eye to spy on them, and it would easily expose his identity. Therefore, Han Dong had his head lowered the entire time and followed behind him with a respectful expression. As they walked, the priest's voice came from the darkness. "You're not a dark dweller, are you? I don't think I've seen you in the church." Han Dong had already thought of an excuse and quickly replied, "Father, I came here the day before yesterday after learning the initiation ritual book. Due to the invasion of the hybrid demons, my training was interrupted halfway and I was told to report to the church. In addition, I'm not a dark dweller. I'm a messenger from Perugia City." Han Dong used his identity as a messenger and explained how he came to London without any loopholes. "Perugia City was destroyed, but I couldn't do anything. My homeland was destroyed, and an exile like me couldn't be recognized, so it didn't matter where I went. When I came to London and came into contact with the vortex, I decisively chose a new route. Perugia? I heard that it was destroyed by humans under the premise of complying with the world law." "That's right. I don't know the details. I was outside delivering a letter." "Humans, what an interesting race." Father Lessos looked at the hybrid demon's overall genealogy and belonged to the Grey Walker, related to Han Dong's head. The priest himself also followed the rules of the Walker, imitating the way humans lived in London and carried out activities related to the Church of Darkness. His view of humans was different from other hybrid demons. He believed that humans could exist together with hybrid demons, and they were not inferior races. Although humans had weak bodies and were easily manipulated by desires, their talent was unique. "Reverend Father, can I ask some questions? Although I came into contact with the vortex, I don't know the origin of this ability. When I killed the tailor with great difficulty, he only mentioned Saint rank. He didn't mention a word about the world he was in. What kind of place did these people come from?" The priest seemed to be in a good mood, and he said what he could say. "A Saint rank world, a world on the same level as our world, but completely unrestrained, a free world that only needs to pursue the path. You'll know the specific situation when you successfully integrate into the miracle. I'm also under some restrictions, so I can't reveal information about the world here. Yes, I'll do my best to win the opportunity to come into contact with the miracle." Under the priest's lead, they passed through the developer's passage. Han Dong came to a compartment, which looked like a lounge with a bench, a wardrobe, and a bathroom. There were also two strange teachers resting here. One of them was resting on the bench, with a sack over his entire head and a knot around his neck to prevent his head from falling off. The shirtless upper body emitted a metallic luster, which was better than the senior instructor, Minda, that Han Dong saw from the eyeball's memory in terms of metallic luster and coverage. He was also a flesh-modified person among the dark inhabitants. Not only were his joints twisted, this person's two arms were twisted into a fried dough twist, hanging casually on the ground. At the same time, he was also wearing boxing gloves. He seemed to be a boxer in London when he was alive. He was very strong. The other had just walked out of the bathroom. Similar to the jade feet of the dark elves, she stepped out first. Immediately after, a woman walked out of the bathroom. Under a bath towel was a proud figure, and a soft and translucent black tail fell behind her. It was fine up to here, but if one continued to look up, it would be uncomfortable. The woman's head had been covered by the vortex, and only her plump lips and mouth were left intact. The distance from the lips to the forehead had all turned into a concave vortex, and the depth just reached the back of the head. Two eyeballs were freely sliding in the vortex pit, sometimes in the deepest part, sometimes on the face. Now, Han Dong finally understood why Father Lessos appeared in the outer passage. The final competition, used for the screening, should be a kind of 3v3 competition. The priest only had two most trusted subordinates, so he needed to find another one. Han Dong, who had killed a saint rank life form and expressed the characteristics of an independent vortex, naturally became the best choice. Chapter 1082. Due to the arrival of Father Lessos, the girl who had just walked out of the bathroom quickly knelt down in the most pious manner, her hands in front of her chest in a praying posture. The eyeballs that were spinning in the grooves on her face were fixed in their normal positions as much as possible. In comparison, the man who looked like a boxer on the recliner was much more relaxed. He just sat up slowly, facing the priest with his head covered in his sack, and greeted him in a normal way. Moreau, this is your new teammate, Nicholas. You will form a team of 3 and participate in the final selection. The girl who was kneeling on the ground did not expect to find a new teammate so quickly. Her eyeballs spun like marbles in her spiral head, trying to spy on Han Dong's body structure in this way. The information she read was very strange. The newcomer chosen by the priest was a mantis demon who had yet to touch the door, but his body contained a divinity that could only be possessed by an atavistic body. Moreau tilted her head, her face full of confusion. To ensure harmony within the team, the priest continued to add, Nicholas killed a craftsman from a saint-level world in the church's passageway. He won't be weak. I'll leave the specific arrangements to you, Moreau. The 3 of you are the ones I think the most highly of, and also the ones most likely to resonate with the miracle. I hope you can perform well in the upcoming selection competition. After saying that, darkness shrouded the priest, and he left the resting area. As soon as the priest left, the man in the sack called Z immediately fell asleep on the bench, not caring about his new teammates at all. As for Moreau, who was arranged to be the team leader by the priest, she had a completely different attitude. She was very interested in the new young man. She changed into a black tight suit suitable for combat, supported her body with her tail, and moved in a manner that was close to floating and came a Han Dong. Her body was great in all aspects, but her whirlpool head was a little annoying. Since you were chosen by the priest, you must be very strong. Speaking of which, why haven't I seen you in the church before? Did you just come? Yes. Then you must not know about the current situation of the church and the selection competition we're about to face. It should be a few hours before the outsiders pass through the border area. Come here, Big Sister will tell you about it in detail. Moreau rolled her eyes as she pulled Han Dong towards the bathroom cubicle. Han Dong didn't care. He had seen all kinds of hybrid demons before, so he was familiar with all kinds of forms. Holding the attitude of wanting to get more information, he followed Milo to the bathroom for a private chat. In the aisle of the church, any individual that entered the church would be forcibly disassembled and transported to different passageways to move independently. Only individuals who walked out of the outer passage within the specified time were eligible to participate in the final selection competition. The powerful Origin Yimo were naturally separated as well. Individuals like the Mad Devil and the Giant Hopper, who had mounts, would also use a special method to store their mounts into their bodies before they entered. The Yandelo's hound was directly sucked into the cavernous eye of the mad demon and kept in its own abyss. Hopu, on the other hand, kneaded his giant beast mount into a ball of meat and swallowed it into his body for safekeeping. They were well prepared for the London game. Moreover, they had no intention of using the miracle of the maelstrom to break through. They were purely following the king's orders to participate in the London Games, to train themselves, or to vent their desire to kill and purge the world of invaders. In a certain aisle, the Mad Devil squatted on the ground and stared at the scattered metal screws and a mechanical eyeball with a look of fear. He said helplessly, "That's it." The one who encountered the Mad Devil was also a craftsman from the saint-level world, Screwman. This poor craftsman had even given up on the idea of reassembling. His heart was filled with fear. He didn't expect such a terrifying creature to exist in this hybrid demon world that could be countered by their abilities. He just wanted to die quickly. The few remaining parts immediately gathered toward the heart and tried to self-destruct. The Mad Devil naturally wouldn't let him die successfully. Swoosh! 2 fingers accurately pinched the heart at the speed of lightning and threw it into the abyss of madness. In another aisle, quite a strong impact was constantly heard. If it weren't for the land deed supporting this space, the church would have been destroyed long ago. Hopper, with a head of messy blonde hair, looked like a savage. He was beating up a craftsman who specialized in defense. Mr. Ironwall, special. The craftsman believed that no one in his level could break through his defense through physical means. Now, Hopper's fist forcefully penetrated the many layers of iron walls that made up his body. Even his heart, which was protected by high-density fine iron, was smashed by the fist from the front. Until his death, he still couldn't understand how the hybrid demon in front of him had such terrifying power. Hopper didn't have any joy of victory. He only treated his opponent as an ordinary passerby. The invader that Lord Meat Ancestor mentioned is not that strong. However, this person should only be considered as an ordinary person. Maybe there are more powerful ones. I have to be careful. If I can win a miracle and give it to Lord Meat Ancestor, I can definitely exchange it for a large amount of raw meat, allowing my people to achieve a comprehensive transformation. Hopper retracted his sandbag-sized fist to its normal size and continued to go deeper. In a passageway filled with green plague, a certain craftsman, printer, she, whose head was made of a book, had a feminine body and was draped in a holy robe. She was wantonly throwing pages and chanting the holy patterns on the pages through the mouths on her left and right palms to suppress the plague in the passage. However, the pages that had just been thrown on the ground didn't have time to play their role and directly grew eyeballs on the surface. Dispersing couldn't compare to the speed of the plague's erosion. The eyeballs that grew on the surface of the pages slid down on their own and grew small nerve-like legs. They quickly climbed onto the target's body and embedded themselves into the skin. About half an hour later, there was an explosion in the passage. After the battle ended, the eyeballs that were wantonly splattered all crawled towards the corners and returned to their owners' bodies. Black Goat, Sally, also encountered craftsmen in the process of going deeper into the passage. It seemed like someone was secretly arranging for the two individuals from different worlds to meet in the outer passage. The winner would be able to go to the final selection venue. The one who met Sally was a woodcarver, Lou. Unlike other craftsmen, he carved a head for himself and matched it with a handsome face. He looked exactly like a human. This woodcarver was very interested in the human form of Sally. When they met, he expressed his love and wanted to invite Sally to follow him to the saint-level world. Dear Miss Sally, I can carve any part of my body. Whatever shape, or size you want, I can satisfy you. Moreover, my economic conditions and status are not bad. I can completely satisfy your needs. Come with me. The woodcarver, Lou, knelt in front of Sally and expressed his sincere love. Just as he waited for 3 seconds and didn't receive a reply from Sally, the woodcarver's personality changed. The wood-carving master's temperament changed drastically, and he picked up a wood-carving knife. At the same time, a mallet apostle that he had carved appeared, and he planned to kill Sally instantly. As long as there was a bit of meat left, he would be able to create a perfect wood carving for his own use. Ta! The goat's hooves moved. An indescribable pressure descended, and the mallet apostle was directly crushed into pieces. As for the woodcarver's original body, a deep purple tentacle pierced through his heart. Sally's absolutely arrogant eyes were filled with disgust, disdain, and contempt. Trash like you is worthy of expressing your love to me. Chapter 1083. It was the bathroom again. It seemed that he had been spending time alone with girls in the bathroom recently, mainly because of Meridus's affinity for water. Of course, this time it was not because of luck with women. There was an important competition at hand, and even if Moreau was interested in Han Dong, she would not do anything that would waste her stamina at this juncture. Moreau called Han Dong to the bathroom to be alone, just to verify something in private, so that she could come up with the most optimal team arrangement for the upcoming competition. As soon as he stepped into the bathroom, the strange, ambiguous atmosphere disappeared. Instead, it was replaced by a strange and distorted atmosphere. The candlelight in the bathroom slowly turned into the shape of a whirlpool, flickering slightly. The whirlpool Moreau stood with her back facing Han Dong, her body showing the soft female ghost posture commonly seen in horror movies, and all the nodes showed a certain degree of distortion. The three of us are the last hope of the church. The other teachers have only touched upon the basic level of the whirlpool, and according to the systematic evaluation made by the priest in advance, they cannot resonate with the miracle. Only we have the possibility, and the upcoming competition will further verify us. I heard that an holy apostle from the saint-level world will also come and watch our performance as a spectator. If we can leave a good impression in the eyes of the holy apostle, we might be directly introduced into their world and gain a certain status and identity. Han Dong was not frightened by Miro's distorted posture, but asked curiously, "Holy apostle?" "Yes." The priest said that it is an existence equal to him. He specially came from the other world to see who the miracle will end up in. At the same time, he will also bring a group of teachers with a good degree of conversion to leave with him. Mythical body? For a moment, Han Dong had more doubts in his heart, and some of his deductions had problems, and some questions were tangled together. "Father Lessos, what are you planning to do?" Han Dong's thoughts were immediately interrupted by Miro. An existence like the Holy Apostle is not something we can consider. We just need to do our own thing. Although the priest has acknowledged your strength, I still need to verify it in detail to ensure the best allocation in the competition. With that said, the twisted Miro suddenly turned her head and faced Han Dong with her whirlpool face. A strange energy was gathering within. Just as Swirled Lady was about to attack, Han Dong interrupted her with a question. "Wait, may I ask how the competition will be conducted?" "In a group of 3, a one-on-one competition will be held. The vanguard, the general, and the general will be sent to fight in order. 2 out of 3 wins. Therefore, we have to test your ability before we can arrange your appearance. Z, who is resting outside, is the strongest warrior under Father Lyso's command. He is also the previous champion of London's kickboxing. Now let's see what you can do." As he spoke, the 2 eyes in the vortex on Miro's face were already spinning at high speed. Deep hypnosis. She was the head of psychiatry at the National University Hospital in London. Type: Dark Dweller. Inner Demon. A special entity that can spiritualize dark energy. Inner demons were rare among the Dark Dwellers and were classified as a rare species. Most of them had a relatively high status in London. When Miro came into contact with a patient who was attacked by a whirlpool, she developed a strong interest in this otherworldly power. In the process of her research, she unknowingly became addicted to it and directly received an invitation written by Father Lysos. The changes brought to her by the whirlpool were not only the changes in her appearance. It was more of an improvement in the spiritual level. Deep hypnosis would also lead the target's consciousness into a whirlpool tower. While searching for the exit, the target's consciousness would slowly distort. Those with weak willpower would even be permanently trapped in it. The outside of the brain would also slowly turn into a spiral shape and die completely. Hypnosis was just an appetizer. Immediately after, a spiral arm that was both virtual and real slowly drilled out of the whirlpool on Miro's face. The tip of the finger had a structure similar to a synapse. It was a product of the combination of dark spirit and whirlpool. It could easily weaken the target's brain defense and reach the depths of the brain to completely control the target or read their memories. Miro's so-called test was not just to test Han Dong's ability. She also wanted to take the opportunity to explore Han Dong's memory and figure out the true details of this newcomer. However, the characters who vainly tried to do something to Han Dong's brain often didn't have a good juice to eat. When the hypnosis was used on Han Dong, the effect was really good. It did indeed lead Han Dong into a whirlpool tower with an extremely complicated structure. However, the faceless head also completed the analysis in a second. It directly generated a key for Han Dong and casually found a door in the tower and easily left. The Whirlpool Lady Miro's actions put Han Dong in a difficult position. Since the next competition was a team event, Han Dong planned to continue to be a bystander. But Miro's test went straight to the brain, making Han Dong in a dilemma. Seeing that the spirit's arm was about to touch his forehead, snap! A mummy's arm that was emitting death energy instantly lifted up. With the death energy as a medium, it firmly grabbed the spirit's arm. "Miss Miro, my head can't be touched. You're also a psychic ability user?" Just now, it was considered a deep hypnosis at zero distance. People of the same level would be unable to move for at least a minute. My head is just a little special. If you used other methods, I definitely wouldn't be able to withstand it. I'm very weak. The reason why I was able to kill the other world's craftsman was just a coincidence. No matter how Han Dong explained, this Marone knew in her heart, when the time came, she would also make reasonable arrangements. Hurry up and rest for a while. It wasn't easy to kill the craftsman. The people who will be participating in the next competition are all elites who can kill their way in from the outside. Okay, Han Dong tentatively pointed at the bathroom door. Can you let me rest in the bathroom? I prefer places with a lot of water. Miro glanced at Han Dong's body with a suspicious gaze. Since he was a teammate and the target chosen by the priest, she didn't have any doubts. She nodded and gave the bathroom to Han Dong. Splash! Han Dong immediately sank his body into the bathtub. Mary, hurry up and come out, what? There are 2 atavistic body shifters outside. One of them is even psychic. I've already encrypted the bathroom. It's fine. I just want to look at you and wash my eyes. I thought I could accept that whirlpool head, but after staring at it for a long time, it does feel a little uncomfortable. Gurgle, gurgle. Meritus's characteristic allowed her to directly appear from any area related to water, accompanied by a burst of bubbles. Moist curly hair and a slightly round face appeared. This finally replaced the whirlpool face in Han Dong's head. The 2 of them were completely familiar with each other after a series of battles. When Han Dong felt relieved and wanted a rest, a smooth and full thigh landed on the side of the bathtub, acting as a pillow. Stinky man. Mary also knew that Han Dong called her out mainly because he lacked a pillow. Although she cursed, she was still more willing. Chapter 1084. Dong Dong Dong. A series of heavy knocks on the door pulled Han Dong, who was training with a Luna beast in the Dreamlands, back to reality. Then, Maelstrom Mero's voice came from outside the door. The individuals in the outer tunnel have all been selected. Based on the rule of 3-man team, they have formed a total of 5 teams. We need to go to the venue to draw lots. Where's the venue? At the center of the land deed. Father Lessos used the land deed to create the dual space. Because the venue is at the bottom of the Big Ben, it is at the bottom of the Door of Destiny. Therefore, the venue is also the area most affected by the world erosion. The coverage of the other world might be more than 50%. In other words, we will be fighting in the environment of a Saint-Tier world. For shapeshifters like us, there is a certain advantage. The vortex power should be strengthened. When the time comes, the Saint's messenger that I mentioned before will arrive as well. You must perform well. Han Dong nodded. It was just as he expected. Just the outer tunnel alone had 10% to 20% of the world coverage phenomenon. It was only natural that the coverage of the inner tunnel would increase. If it's more than 50%, the creatures there should be able to take advantage of the geographical advantage. It doesn't matter. I can adapt to any environment. Who knows, I might even be able to obtain some information about the Saint-Tier world. Furthermore, no matter how the environment changes, even if it's 100% coverage, as long as it's the same level, no one will be able to defeat that guy. The guy that Han Dong was referring to was Mad Demon. After observing Mad Demon's battle through Eugenus' compound eye, Han Dong had a very high opinion of this prime. His 2 teammates in the resting room were ready to go. Maelstrom Mero wore a white coat on top of a black tights as a battle outfit. It was quite fitting for her former identity as a psychiatrist. Z maintained his original appearance. He wore a linen hood and a pair of custom-made gloves. He wore a pair of loose pants and walked barefoot on the ground. Even though he looked very lazy, if compared to Z's daily life, this was his usual state of excitement. Miracle of the Maelstrom was an absolute presence for shapeshifters like them. Once fused, they would naturally be able to create a myth and rise to a whole new level. Outside the lounge, there was a flight of stairs that led down to the underground area, where the screening venue was constructed with the title deed. The stairs were also affected by the invasion. The stone staircase turned into a transparent staircase made of glass. The further down they went, the less darkness there was. Instead, it was replaced by a rare scene of light. The white light radiating from the bottom floor passed through the glass stairs beneath everyone's feet, emitting a rainbow light that shone on everyone's bodies. It wasn't just Moreau and Z who were not used to such a situation. Even Han Dong, who had been in London for a long time, couldn't adapt to such a brilliant light. To the locals, the darkness was like their protective umbrella and the source of their strength. This was also why everyone carried a black candle with them when they went out. Once a dark dweller exposed themselves to light, not only would their abilities be limited, even the most basic cellular reactions of their bodies would slow down, causing their overall attributes to plummet. I didn't expect that after staying in the dark for so long, I would actually feel a little uncomfortable with the light. But then again, once you get used to this light, your body will feel a comfortable warmth, and it can even slightly increase the flow of energy in your body. It's very comfortable. Moreau and Z were surprised after they got used to it. With the influence of their identity as a dark dweller, they had always been repulsed and even afraid of light. Now, after getting used to the light, they felt a comfort they had never experienced before. This kind of warmth, comfort, and even light that could nourish their bodies made them feel extremely comfortable. They even wanted to sleep under this kind of light. For a moment, their dependence on the darkness was greatly reduced. They even had the thought of never returning to London. After passing through the door at the bottom floor, they arrived at the so-called venue. It made Han Dong feel like he was in a paradise, and the irritation in his heart dissipated. There was a pond, lotus leaves, and a crooked ancient tree that was 100 meters tall. There were also some light particles that looked like miniature jellyfish floating in the air. The white light that made people feel comfortable and warm came from the only fruit at the top of the ancient tree. 90% of the vitality energy absorbed by the ancient tree's roots will be transferred to this non-elemental fruit, releasing a light that could nourish all things. Everyone walked on the water. Every step would leave a puddle of stains, which meant that the pond had absorbed the negative interests in everyone's hearts. Even the nervousness of the upcoming competition had dissipated, allowing everyone to reach their best state. They had thought that the erosion of the saint-level world would cause physical discomfort. Now, not only was there no discomfort, but there was a kind of affinity. They could even reach out and grab some particles floating in the air to replenish themselves with energy. Such an environment was perfect for cultivation. However, there were many similar or even better environments in the saint-level world. Everyone seeks the Tao was realized in such a world. Han Dong also quickly noticed the other teams that had come here. None of the 4 original bodies were missing. Miss Sally was also unscathed. Beside her was the terrifying hunter, Campbell, who was shrouded in a cloak, and a teammate they had recruited along the way. However, the situation of one of the teams made Han Dong's scalp tingle. The 2 of them actually formed a team. The first original body, Mad Demon Christopher J. Green, was actually standing together with the 7th original body, Giant Hopper. If the 2 of them worked together, it would really be fatal. At this moment, Father Lessos arrived with a black umbrella that could block the light. The skull and the Bible were hanging at his waist. His head was still shrouded in darkness, and the light here was not suitable for him. There was also a special existence beside the priest. Wearing a golden mask and shrouded in a long robe, the mysterious man held a noble scepter embedded with colorful gems in his hand. He was integrated with the environment, and his entire body was releasing a kind of power of faith, which even appeared in the form of a halo visible to the naked eye. When Han Dong looked at this person, the part of the mantis demon in his body was immediately suppressed. Count hurriedly hid his consciousness under the talent tree. This was the saint from the saint-level world. His level was equivalent to a mythical body. He was both a spectator and a supervisor of everything here. He had yet to explain the rules of the competition to Father Lessos. Under the golden mask, the saint emitted a kind voice. Young people from the other world, this should be the first time you have felt the warm light from the saint-level world. The saint-level world is all-inclusive and welcomes all outsiders. Even individuals like you, who were born infected by filth, can transform and become saints when you ascend to the saint level. I look forward to your performance. Regardless of whether you have triggered a miracle or failed to win, as long as your performance meets the standards in my heart, you will be guided by me and obtain the qualifications to go to the saint-level world to seek the Tao freely. Chapter 1085. Saint, Gold Grandmaster Fei. The main purpose of coming here was to watch and select talents, supervise and maintain order. Because he was wearing a golden mask, his facial expression could not be seen. In fact, when all the contestants arrived, the Gold Grandmaster's expression was extremely ugly. Because most of the contestants here were actually hybrid demons. Of the 6 teams, 3 were made up of purebred hybrid demons. 1 team was made up of transformed humans who were affected by the vortex, and the remaining 2 teams were made up of craftsmen from the saint-level world. This result made him very unhappy. After all, in terms of basic attributes, saint-level beings restrained impure hybrid demons. After a round of selection, more than half of the craftsmen he brought with him died in the passage. After some bewitching words, the saint created a golden seat for flying and sat alone in the sky to watch the rest of the competition. The manager of the competition was still Father Lessos. The area covered by the black umbrella was self-contained. Father Lessos stood in the middle of the fairyland with the side of absolute darkness and announced the rules. The final selection will be divided into 2 stages. First, confrontation. The person in charge of each team will draw lots, and the teams with the same number will fight. The vanguard, general, and general will be sent to fight according to the order of battle. Once your identity is confirmed, it cannot be changed. If you change your identity in private and change the order of battle, you will be directly killed by me and the saint. The winning team will enter the second stage. Second, ascension. The saint specially brought a gold saint level, and the vortex miracle was also moved to the top of the stairs. The winning team will obtain the right to ascend. Ascension was an important ceremony in the saint-level world, and it was also a path that individuals had to go through to obtain identity and power. The first individual to complete the ascension meant that there was a higher chance of being accepted by the vortex miracle. The saint also said that there was only one chance to touch the miracle. However, individuals who performed well in the selection competition had the chance to cut off their connection with the current world, completely change their identity, and go to the saint-level world to live a new life. I hope you can show your best strength. Representatives of the 6 teams, please come to me to draw lots. At this moment, the saint sitting on the golden seat suddenly raised his hand, and his voice came from the top. Father Lessos, among these teams, one of them is yours. To ensure absolute fairness, the lot drawing ceremony will be led by both of us. Father, you will still be in charge of drawing lots, but I will provide the tools for the drawing. After that, 6 golden medallions slowly descended from the sky. The number imprinted in gold could not be changed. Even if Father Lessos wanted to do something, he would be discovered. At this moment, the priest's face under the cover of darkness changed slightly. Indeed, Father Lessos had a certain degree of selfishness. He really wanted the 3 transformers under his command to obtain the qualifications to ascend the stairs. However, the prerequisite to being qualified was to win the competition. As a mythical body of the hybrid demons, he naturally knew how powerful the 4 primordial spirits were. It was not easy for Father Lessos to win the qualification to be in charge of the final screening. He wanted to go easy on his own people, or at least avoid these monstrous protoplasmic bodies. Otherwise, he wouldn't even have the chance to ascend the stairs, let alone accept the miracle. Furthermore, currently, there was still the worst option in the selection competition, terrifying team formed by the 1st and 7th essence. If they were unlucky, they would not even have a 1% chance of winning and would definitely die in the competition. If the darkness overflowed from the priest's face, his current expression could scare ordinary people to death within a few hundred meters. However, He quickly suppressed his emotions and made it seem like there was no change. He only paused for 2 seconds. His tone was also very calm. Representatives of each team, please step forward to draw lots. On Han Dong's side, Vortex Lady Marrow naturally stepped forward as the representative. Han Dong also vaguely saw some clues. The little magic I read the dark aura that enveloped the priest, and there was a slight change just now. Father Lesos seems to have been tricked, judging from the fact that he used his privilege to accept me in advance. The groups here should be able to do some tricks to prevent us from running into the protoplasmic bodies. In this way, the relationship between the priest and the Golden Saint seems to be very ordinary. It could even be said that it is very fragile. This is a good thing. However, this also puts us under a lot of pressure. We can only hope that Marrow's luck will be better. 1 in 5 chance. Please don't fall for it. If they really ran into the first essence, the only thing Han Dong could do was to protect himself. It would be difficult to carry out the follow-up plan. The current situation made Han Dong very nervous. The only thing he could do was pray. The drawing of lots ended. 3 different patterns appeared on the surface of the golden medallion. They were cloud, stone, and tree. The corresponding pattern in Marrow's hand was tree. Tree. Which team does it correspond to? His little magic eye was fully activated. Han Dong did not care about the situation of the other teams. All his attention was fixed on Mad Devil's hand. Not only Han Dong, at least 2 other eyes were looking at the golden medallion in Mad Devil's hand. Stone. When he saw the mark on it, Han Dong let out a sigh of relief. My God, I haven't been so nervous in a long time. Speaking of which, who drew tree? Just as Han Dong wanted a peek at the other team's golden lots. The corresponding pattern of each team was clearly reflected on the surface of the water below their feet. As for the other team that drew tree, it happened to be the Black Goat, Miss Sally. Their gazes met. Han Dong did not know how to respond other than smiling awkwardly. At the same time, Han Dong also noticed a problem. Because of the 3-man team, a hybrid demon with a special appearance joined Sally's team. When he was anthropomorphized, he actually took the posture of an Indian monk. He was completely different from the little monk Gu Su that Han Dong met in Prometheus. Not only in appearance, but also in temperament. He wore a shabby monk's robe and had a Middle Eastern appearance. He had a string of huge prayer beads hanging around his neck. He looked about 70 years old. He was thin and tall, but he had big feet that were about 60 yards long. His whole body exuded a strange demonic aura. This monk is a bit strange. I have to be careful if I encounter him. Han Dong also took the opportunity to look at the other teams to see which team had drawn the worst lot. The other team shown as Stone was a team of craftsmen from the Saint Rank world. However, this team of craftsmen did not look weak at all. They were much stronger than the Taylor team that Han Dong encountered. Interesting. I can see how strong this Mad Devil is. At the same time, I can also evaluate the power of the Giant Hopper. This match should be very exciting. Chapter 1086. There were a total of 3 matches. Cloud, Stone, and Tree would fight in the order. Cloud, a team formed by the 5th Origin, the revered Eugenus, against a team of craftsmen from a saint-level world. According to Sally's description, Eugenus was an evil existence. Once you became Eugenus' target, you would often die before you could see his face clearly. Moreover, Eugenus was proficient in an ancient secret technique passed down from the ancients. In terms of purity, it was higher than the secret techniques used by the Mantis of the same level. Even the Mantis Circle, Eugenus' ability was rated as heretical power. Currently, this man with dirty green hair and a foul smell appeared. He was Eugenus' human form. When an outsider looked at Eugenus, they would feel like they were looking at thousands of eyes. Eugenus, called a heretic existence by the Mantis demons. He has an extremely rare ancient inheritance in his body. Let's see how strong he is in a head-on fight. Eugenus' teammates were a pair of twins. To be exact, they were a pair of twins. According to the rules of the London game, the appearance of the humanoid state was they were similar to a pair of twins, Nordic witches. Their bodies were white and flawless. Their bodies were only covered with thin, white clothes. At the same time, they also had a suction cup tail. The end of the tail was toothed and had the function of eating. Under normal circumstances, their tails were completely sucked together and they floated in the air. As twins, they could unleash extremely strong abilities when working together. Once they were alone, their strength would be greatly reduced. The forced separation in the last round had put them in a difficult situation. It was only because of Eugenius that they were saved and led the two to the periphery that they managed to fight their way here. However, the current competition mode required them to fight separately again. Lord Eugenius, is there any way for us to fight together? Because the two had been saved by Eugenius and had done some private things, they had changed the way they addressed Eugenius. They seemed to have become Eugenius' slaves. Under the messy green hair, a mouth full of black teeth wriggled gently and made uncomfortable sounds. There were even green plagues exhaling at the same time as he spoke. I didn't set the rules. You can only fight one by one according to the order. Just fight. I have a way to win the game. The order of appearance was set by Eugenius. He put himself last. The first to appear was the elder sister, Ruth, followed by the younger sister, Luna. The competition with the theme of cloud officially began. On the surface of the water, where everyone was standing, a large amount of clouds and mist suddenly rose. The thick clouds and mist not only blocked their vision, but also greatly blocked the spread of their spiritual power. Even Han Dong's little magic, I would be greatly affected. The sisters' abilities were also related to their minds to a certain extent. As they stared at the clouds in front of them, the uneasiness in their hearts intensified. The rules of the competition were best of 3. Once both sisters lost, the first round would be over, and Eugenius wouldn't even have a chance to fight. However, Eugenius showed a strange smile and urged, "Go. There's no need to worry." Clap, their tails separated, and the joint state was canceled. Instantly, the aura emitted by the two of them decreased by more than half. They couldn't use their joint secret technique or an extremely rare combination secret technique. Fighting alone, the two sisters might not even be able to defeat Count, who had just advanced to the atavistic body. Cloud first round, the demonic bug girl, Ruth, versus the crystal craftsman, Belle. Ruth's opponent was also a female. Just like most craftsmen, the head of Belle was similar to a cluster of crystals, densely packed with scale-like crystals. The fact that Belle could participate in the competition here meant that she had already killed an atavistic body in the outer passage. The battle began. The battle ended in just 30 seconds, and the crystal craftsman, Belle, won the competition with an overwhelming victory. The saint on the golden throne clapped his hands slightly, very satisfied with the result. In his knowledge, they were the nemesis of the hybrid demons, and it was normal for them to crush their peers. Han Dong, who was watching the battle from the sidelines, frowned slightly. Is it because of the characteristics of the symbiotic body that their strength will be greatly reduced when fighting alone? However, this craftsman is indeed powerful. She used the characteristics of the clouds and mist to create a clone so that the opponent can't recognize the real one. Also, the crystals on her body can reflect spells, and many of the hybrid demon secret techniques are useless against her. Inside the arena, due to being crushed by the crystals, only a pile of minced meat was left on the arena. Poor Sister Ruth didn't even have a complete body part left. As for her sister's crushing defeat and death, her sister, Luna, naturally fell into a state of extreme sadness and even fear. It seemed that she would definitely lose the next battle. In the team, Eugenius still had a sickly smile on his face. Eugenius wants to lose? Is it because of the number 1 origin essence? Not only Han Dong, but the other hybrid demons present also had the same suspicion. Did Eugenius consider that there were many masters present, or was he not interested in the London game and was forced to come here? He deliberately found 2 sisters who couldn't win and used their deaths to withdraw from the London game? At this moment, Eugenius suddenly moved. He looked at the referee, Father Lessos, who was about to clean up the arena. "Father, can you give me this pile of mincemeat? I'm a bit hungry." Eugenist's words shocked many people present. Some were confused, some were disgusted, and some showed disdain. The priest hesitated for a moment and agreed to Eugenist's request. "Thank you, Father." Ignoring the gazes of the people present, Eugenist was like a hungry wild dog, directly lying on the ground and eating. When he finished eating all the minced meat, Eugenist didn't forget to lick a few more mouthfuls. Such a vile action almost aroused the disgust of everyone present. Strangely, as the victim's sister, Luna, didn't have much of an expression. And when Eugenist finished eating her sister's body, Luna even smiled through her tears, showing a sickly smile. The sadness from before seemed to be an act. That damned sister is finally dead. That useless thing has always been dragging me down. After eating, Eugenist's stomach had been doing some kind of reaction, as if it was integrating and rearranging the minced meat. When they returned to the team, Luna showed a look full of love and hugged Eugenist, kissing him passionately. It seemed to be intimate contact between the opposite sex. In fact, the minced meat that Eugenist had swallowed into his body was purified by an ancient secret technique and turned into a refined meatball. The current hug and kiss was just transporting the meatball into his sister's body. Then, an equally beautiful face appeared at the back of his sister's head. At this point, as the demonic bug sisters, they had achieved a perfect fusion. They emitted an aura similar to the origin essence body, stronger than when they were originally united. "Thank you, Lord Eugenist. Go quickly. Finish the competition as soon as possible." Chapter 1087. The first round of the competition with the theme, Cloud, came to the final third match. In the second match, due to the twin sister Luna's overwhelming victory, she made up for her elder sister's loss in the first match. Now, it was Eugene's turn. At this time, the first original substance, Mad Demon, and Father Lysos, who was a mythical body, were watching the match carefully. This was the first public match for the original substance body other than the original substance game. Everyone wanted to see Eugene, who always liked to hide and trick people. What kind of performance would he have in this one-on-one arena? Not long after the match started, everyone's eyes changed. The crazy young man showed a slightly tense smile and commented in a low voice, "Eugene, this guy has changed so much. No wonder he has been engraved with the things left by the ancients in his body. It seems that I underestimated you a bit. You should still be in the developing stage during the original substance competition. I really want to fight with you again." One interesting guy. In the arena. The arena with the theme, Cloud, an area belonging to the saint-level world, was polluted by Eugene. The clouds turned green and grew eyes. A large number of green tentacles grew on the side of the arena and kept secreting smelly body fluids. The quiet and clear lake had become as sticky, smelly, and dirty as a sewer. As for Eugene, who liked to trick people in everyone's impression, he also showed another side, which could be called battle mode. The base formed by countless eyeballs carried Eugene in a sitting posture and floated in the air. The whole thing was in a very strange mood. Eugene's opponent was also the strongest person in the opposing team. It was a silversmith deuce who was very professional in exorcism. With a pure silver cross as the head, his whole body was covered with silver, and the silver transformation on the cellular level made him look like Silver Shadow Man in Marvel. He was an exorcism tool and was highly valued by the Golden Saint. He was certain that he would perform outstandingly in the process of this world erosion, and win the victory for the Saint Stage world, causing the hybrid demons to be wary of him. However, the exorcism that he expected didn't achieve the desired effect. No matter what kind of silver was thrown at Eugene, it would be distorted by some visual field and couldn't hit. As the pollution spread throughout the arena, the silversmith deuce chose to use his final killing move. He plucked off the crosshead and turned it into a real silver greatsword. He quickly moved to the front of Eugenist, the source of corruption. His silver greatsword emitted a strong, purifying light as it slashed down. The silver sword contained the way that blacksmith cultivated, and it cut through Eugenist's eyeball barrier. Whoosh! He was unable to dodge. The great sword cleaved Eugenius apart from the top of his head. Originally, he thought that he could completely split it open, but he was stuck at the abdomen. However, in such a tragic scene, everyone thought that the silversmith had won. Such a pure saint-grade weapon, when it cut into the hybrid demon's body, was enough to instantly vaporize the hybrid demon. However, something unexpected happened. Eugenius, whose fleshly body had been cut open, had smoke rising from his body as if he were evaporating. In fact, the holy sword that had cut into his body was slowly corroding. Green fluorescent eyeballs began to spread on the surface of the sword, infecting Silversmith Dirk's body. Not only could it ignore attribute restraints, but it could also invade in reverse. This scene almost caused the saint to stand up from his golden chair. At this moment, under the golden mask was a grimace. What kind of monster is this? Dirk Erdwa's silversmith was actually unable to restrain him, and he could even be invaded in reverse. This is no longer a hybrid demon provided by the Black Tower. The plague he had unleashed carried a very ancient feeling. Such an existence must be killed. Otherwise, it will be a threat to our world. The Golden Saint made up his mind to kill such an anomaly at the end of the competition. Eugenius' performance had far exceeded his expectations of the hybrid demon, and even made him feel an inexplicable threat. Slap! Silver liquid splattered in all directions. This pitiful silversmith had been turned into an eyeball for Eugenius to control, and his soul was also imprisoned within. As Eugenius left the field, the plague that had spread between the clouds and in the pond instantly returned to his body, and everything returned to the comfortable and pleasant state of the fairyland. It wasn't that the silversmith was too weak, as he had killed 2 hybrid demons outside, but Eugenius was too powerful. In the first round of Cloud, Eugenius' team won. This is the strength of a body of origin. Han Dong stared at Eugenius, who was holding a silver eyeball and walking slowly off the field. His facial muscles twitched slightly. In his mind, Han Dong had already labeled this person as extremely dangerous. Black Goat Sally also secretly gritted her teeth. Eugenius' improvement speed was beyond imagination, and if the rankings were to be rearranged, their positions might be switched. Lord Eugenius. Sister Luna didn't care about Eugenius' dirty image at all, and directly pounced on him when he left the field. Firstly, it was out of gratitude, and secondly, it was out of admiration for the strong. She kissed him from the front, and then kissed her sister's face at the back of the head. Eugenius didn't have the mood. Slap! A green tentacle directly slapped Luna away, and he sat on the ground alone and began to study the silver eyeball and the structure of the blacksmith's life. Luna, who was sent flying, wasn't angry. Instead, she showed a very comfortable expression and quietly crawled behind Eugenius, silently waiting for the Lord's next order. As a competition director, Father Lyso's expression didn't change at all. This result seemed to be within his expectations. Next, the theme of the competition will be stone, and Christopher, wait a minute. The voice from the golden seat came again. The group of people I brought here seems to be a little uncomfortable due to world shift and the change in environment. I hope to change the order of the competition. First, the theme of the competition will be tree. The second, interference. Considering that the interference this time wouldn't have a big impact, and that it was necessary for the overall situation, Father Lysos restrained his temper and didn't object. He nodded and acquiesced. No matter how the order was changed, the competition was inevitable, and it was only a matter of time. Just as Father Lysos took a step back again and prepared to let the team that had drawn the tree to prepare for the competition in advance, something strange happened. Mad Devil, Christopher J. Green, who was originally with his teammates, disappeared. The next second, he appeared in front of the golden seat. With his hands in his trouser pockets, he bent down and looked at the saint in front of him. Haven't the rules of the competition been set? I'm ready to kill. Why did you suddenly change the rules? F*CKU. Ignoring identity. Ignoring the difference in level. Just because he felt unhappy, The mad devil directly went to find the gold saint, who was comparable to a mythical body. He raised his foot and intended to kick the other party's golden mask. The next second, a golden wall suddenly appeared between the two of them. When the kick landed on the surface of the wall, a layer of ripples appeared. At the same time, a reaction force with the effect of the golden holy seal sent the mad devil flying more than 20 meters away. The skin on the sole of his foot was broken and golden liquid flowed out. It was extremely painful. The mad devil was so angry that his teeth itched. He directly broke the whole leg and threw it away. He took out a new leg from his ear hole and installed it on himself. Just as he was about to continue fighting with the saint, an arm fell on his shoulder, and the dark breath that touched his soul instantly spread throughout his body. At the same time, an unbreakable dark shackle was formed in Grimm's hand. Grimm, for violating the competition rules, you are punished with hand imprisonment until the end of the competition. Saint Emissary, are you satisfied with this punishment? Chapter 1088. Saint Gold Master Fey. He was both the invitee and the overseer of the world's invasion. Although the sudden request to change the order of the competition was a little overstepping his authority, the change of the order would not have a substantial impact on the competition. Besides, the Knight Priest, who was the referee of the competition, had acquiesced. No one would have thought. The mad devil, Grimm, whose level was one level lower. He actually came to the saint, who was comparable to a mythical being, and scolded him. He even wanted to attack the saint. However, it was this kind of crazy behavior that was worthy of the blood that flowed in Grimm's body. Even after the first clash between Grimm and the saint, Grimm remained unscathed and wanted to continue his attack. Fortunately, the Knight Priest suppressed him. Due to Grimm's violation of the rules, he was deprived of the right to use his hands in the next round. The saint also knew that it was inappropriate for him to change the order of the competition at the last minute, so he and the Knight Priest each took a step back and accepted the punishment. Of course, the Gold Saint had his own selfish motives. Mad Devil Grimm's kick just now was not a simple one. It left a shallow footprint on the surface of the saint's clothes. He can shake the golden wall with a single kick. This crazy young man should be one of the top figures of the same level in this world. His threat is no less than the monster that could reverse contaminate the silverware in the first round of the competition. This probing attack seems to have attracted a lot of interesting little guys. If we can get rid of these little guys with potential in advance, it will be more beneficial for our subsequent erosion plan. My hands are restricted. It's a good chance to kill you. Under the Saint's command, the last team of craftsmen immediately surrounded them. The Saints seemed to have changed the order and arranged a strategy for this team. In fact, some kind of golden liquid that symbolized the Saint's origin and carried a rich divinity was flowing out from the bottom of the mask, filling up a golden wine cup that was studded with gems. This scene was completely invisible to the others. The Saint used his own control of the fairyland to cover and conceal the environment. When the others looked, they could only see the Saint and his subordinates having a normal discussion. Visual switch. Han Dong. Mad Devil Green's actions allowed Han Dong to obtain extremely important information. With his 100% demonic eye, he was able to see the entire process of the two of them clashing head-on. This kind of information was far too valuable. Han Dong even wanted to personally thank this crazy little brother. A divinity barrier made of gold can reflect all incoming attacks and bestow the gold attribute. As a result, Grimm's right leg was injured. Gold flowed out from the wound and was unable to heal. Even his entire leg had lost its mobility. If I guess correctly, the golden wall should be a representation of a domain. A mythical level domain would completely materialize the domain surrounding the body and grant it with divinity. Since any form of attack could be reflected, if he wanted to break through, he would have to use his domain to meet it head-on. As for Mad Demon, this guy seemed to be crazy, but in fact, he was not an absolute lunatic. When he realized the danger, he decisively abandoned his entire right leg. He even had the intention to disassemble his right leg when he was sent flying. His body seems to be connected to the abyss, and his body is even built with the abyss as the prototype. The related abilities are also built around the abyss. This was the information that Han Dong had obtained, and it would definitely be useful in the future. Clap. Suddenly, there was a loud clap that interrupted his thoughts. What are you thinking? It's almost our turn to go on stage. Hurry up and get ready. Standing in front of Han Dong was the team leader, Miss Marrow. The two eyes that were spinning in the vortex on her face were full of uneasiness. Obviously, in the first round of the competition, the fifth origin, Eugenis performance was too terrifying, and it severely damaged Marrow's self-confidence. Now, her team was about to face the black goat, Sally, who was one rank higher than Eugenis in the origin ranking. According to Eugenis performance, even Z is likely to be defeated by this group of origin bodies. The changes brought to us by the vortex do exist, but it's still difficult to be on par with this group of monsters at the moment. Our only chance of winning is whether we can stagger that black goat. Unfortunately, we don't know their ranking. At this moment, Sally and the others who were standing on the other side of the competition field actually stood in line according to the order of appearance. At the same time, they took the initiative to reveal the ranking information to Han Dong. Vanguard, Terror Hunter Campbell General. Hybrid demon with the appearance of an Indian monk general. Sally, the black goat. This action immediately resolved Marrow's confusion. She secretly smiled, but at the same time felt a little uncomfortable. As expected of the origin bodies, they don't care about dark dwellers like us at all. In that case, Z will deal with the first Terror Hunter, and I'll deal with the second. As long as we win the first 2 rounds, there's no need for the third round, and we'll advance directly. Han Dong naturally understood Marrow's intention. Tianji's horse race. What if one of you loses? If we lose, everything will be over. Nicholas, you will also give your life for the cause of London. Marrow's meaning was clear. Han Dong was no match for the fourth origin body. She was just betting on her and Z. Oh. Han Dong shrugged, looking unconcerned. Of course, Marrow's idea was not wrong at all. Even count in Han Dong's body, or Meritus temporarily hiding in his body, would think that Han Dong was no match for the origin body. Even Han Dong himself did not have much confidence. But this Tianji's horse race arrangement was in line with Han Dong's plan. If he did not arrange it this way, it would be very difficult for him. He raised his hand. Black sand formed a comfortable reclining chair. Han Dong made a very lazy appearance, leaning against the side of the field to rest. I hope Big Z and Miss Marrow can work hard. If they can really win 2 rounds, I can enter the final round as a bystander. At this moment, the competition with the theme of tree began. The crooked trees on the outskirts of the fairyland suddenly began to grow wildly. Tree trunks and branches of various sizes quickly occupied the entire lake, forming a tangled forest of tree trunks. The height was at least 100 meters, reaching a kind of tree world feeling. The uneven tree trunks widened the competition area vertically, providing more competition space. First round, Vanguard Battle Terror Hunter. Campbell versus Whirlpool Man. Z. Campbell, a mantis demon from the outer star field. Although his strength is not as good as the origin body, he is still very powerful. Unfortunately, the restriction of tree makes it difficult for him to use his aerial advantage, and his strength will be affected. As for Z, according to Marrow, he is one of the best atavistic bodies among the dark inhabitants, and his body is affected by the depth of the whirlpool and has undergone a unique change. It is difficult to determine the outcome of this battle. Less than 30 seconds had passed since the start of the game. Crack, 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 at least a dozen thick branches were broken. Oh, there is such a guy in London? That's interesting. Mad Demon, whose hands were bound, also turned his attention to the field, marveling at someone's performance. In the tree world, one of Campbell's proudest wings was completely shattered, and the remaining part was twisted into a ball. He stared at his opponent wearing a linen hood not far away with an expression of disbelief. Chapter 1089. He can actually achieve such a high conversion rate. This hybrid demon's fusion rate and proficiency with the whirlpool is even higher than the whirlpool craftsman's. And he also fused with the darkness attribute he learned as a hybrid demon. I didn't expect that in a world with conflicting attributes, there would be such a perfect fusion. This person can be brought back, and he will definitely be chosen as a good experimental material. The Gold Saint gave a high evaluation of Z's performance. However, he looked down on this type of person in his heart. All the good words he said before the competition were all lies. A hybrid demon that was accepted as a saint would not be recognized in a saint realm world. Once they were brought over by the saint, they would not be able to enjoy the so-called preferential treatment and freedom. They would be reduced to the lowest level of existence and would even become a pitiful experimental material. This guy, Han Dong, who was watching the fight, was also shocked by Z's punch. The purity was too high. As a dark inhabitant, flesh-modified. As physical body, the darkness technology embedded in his body and the whirlpool attribute fused with his body reached the level of a trinity. If Campbell didn't use the wings of fear that he was so proud of to block it, this duel might have already ended. Other than Han Dong, there was another person who was very interested in Z's performance. It was the hybrid demon Giant Hall, who had been changed to be the last to fight. Oh, I didn't expect London to have such an interesting person. Just looking at the purity of his physical body, he is very good. More importantly, his technique. I have never seen this kind of technique that can fuse high-speed rotation into his attacks. And it's not just his attacks. All of his movements have a rotation effect, causing his overall strength to have a qualitative increase. No wonder he had to compromise with the power of another realm. It's not a loss to bring such an increase. Even I'm a bit moved. I didn't come here in vain. If I can obtain the final miracle, can I also obtain this technique? If I can fuse this rotation technique into my attacks, the destructive power will at least double or even more. This kind of move that has a strong defense breaking effect will definitely be able to break through the defense that I found difficult to break in the past. I might be able to rise to second place in the next Origin competition. In the tree world, one of Campbell's wings of fear was destroyed, so his overall mobility was severely reduced. However, he did not panic. Instead, he changed his fighting style. He gave up on flying and retracted his other wing into his body. Then, he used all of his hybrid demon energy in the form of tentacles. Isomorphic snake claw. Campbell's tentacle was a kind of white tentacle covered in terrifying black patterns, and its tip was a snake's head. Currently, over 20 snake-shaped tentacles drilled out from Campbell's arms and underwent isomerization, transforming into incomparably sharp claws. The surface of each claw was covered with a layer of black miasma. The sharp claws could pierce and tear apart the enemy, and they could also transform into poisonous snakes that could lengthen or shorten according to Campbell's will, injecting lethal venom into the target's body. Campbell could even construct his entire arm into a large venomous python. This kind of bionic transformation was similar to Count's bloodhound, but the way he attacked was completely different. In the meantime, Campbell's eyes also gave birth to snake eyes in the form of double pupils, increasing his ability to capture movement. The remaining long wing of fear was split into 4 by Campbell, transforming into small wings with indescribable faces. They were symmetrically long on the back and could provide short-distance, extremely fast flight, restoring mobility and increasing balance. It was more suitable for fighting. Come, fellow who betrayed the hybrid demons, who was wearing a strange linen hood, was using a twisted and strange pace to pass through the tree trunks and arrive on the same branch as Campbell. A head-on collision. Campbell suddenly swung out his spiked right arm that was surrounded by layers of sharp claws, intending to clash head-on with his opponent. However, Z's attack pattern suddenly changed. Whether it was Z's boxer image or his previous attacks, Campbell was certain that Z's punching pattern was based on human boxing. However, there was a change, and the speed was even faster. Z's arm actually turned into a whip while he was swinging it. The spiral arm stirred in the air and whipped towards Campbell like a long whip. Using both arms together, coupled with the extremely fast punches, it was as though there were more than 10 high-speed whips that struck Campbell's body at the same time. What? Campbell's reaction was already very fast. He immediately changed into a defensive state, but he was still one step too late. Boom! More than 10 isomerized tentacles were directly broken. All the hybrid demons had a deep understanding of the pain of the tentacles being destroyed. However, the most serious injury wasn't to the tentacles. Campbell's expression was extremely ugly. The right side of his body was almost numb. The whip just now had hit his right waist when he wasn't defending. The whirlpool had the effect of breaking defense, instantly tearing apart the defensive snake scales he had left under his skin. The flesh on his waist was completely distorted, and a tumor-like whirlpool lump could be seen. The body tissues within 20 centimeters were completely crushed, and the energy transmission route was also disrupted. Campbell lost. Han Dong concluded. With such an injury, there was no chance of turning the situation around. There was no time to take a breather. Z stepped on the whirlpool and rapidly teleported between the trees. Just as Campbell crashed into a thick tree trunk, Z had already arrived in front of him. When Z raised his fist, strands of dense, dark energy scattered around his arm in a whirlpool shape. I can't disappoint Miss Sally. Let's fall into the abyss together. Campbell endured his injuries and used all the tentacles in his body. Creak, creak, creak. Hundreds of snake-shaped tentacles crazily flowed out from all the holes on Campbell's body. They gathered on his right arm and formed a giant python with a ghost face, swallowing Z in front of him. A fist against the giant python. Campbell was once again sent flying by the extremely pure fist energy. Like a spiral bullet, he crashed through layers of tree branches and finally fell into the Wonderland pond at the bottom. However, Z was also injured. The dark whirlpool formed by the fist tore apart the giant python's body, but a part of it remained. Shwa! The mask on Z's face was torn apart by the fangs. What was exposed was an ugly and distorted face. It didn't seem to be caused by the whirlpool, but a mark left behind by Campbell. Winner, Z. After the results of the competition were announced, Black Goat Sally immediately dived into the water and fished Campbell out. Although he was seriously injured, he wasn't dead yet. A drop of purple liquid from Sally fell into Campbell's mouth. Immediately, small purple tentacles appeared in his body and started to repair his wounds, inducing new tissues to form. Sally stared at Campbell, who was seriously injured, and said in a low voice, "Alui, you can kill him directly in the next round. Leave it to me." The man who looked like an Indian monk revealed a friendly smile and kept his palms together as he walked up the tree arena. Chapter 1090. What a strong aura of hostility. As if his burlap hood was pierced, his face full of self-inflicted wounds was exposed. A strong aura of hostility was emitted. Rather than a boxer, he was more like a London butcher. Miss Marrow, who was watching the match, revealed an evil smile. His ugly face that he can't even look at is exposed in front of so many people. He must be very angry. Just as Marrow said, Z didn't show any joy at winning at the end of the match. Instead, he reached out and pulled off a few pieces of bark, wanting to cover his head. But the bark came from this crooked tree. Once it was peeled off, it would quickly decay and turn into ashes. As time passed, Z, who couldn't cover his face, became more and more irritated, his body almost twisting into a ball. Just as he was about to explode, caw-caw, the three crows flew over and connected with each other through their antennae, turning into a crow mask and putting it on him. With his face covered, Z's irritable mood was immediately suppressed, and he calmed down in a short time. Z walked out of the tree world and stopped beside Han Dong. "Thank you," he said in a low voice that sounded like his vocal cords had been destroyed. "You're welcome. Congratulations on winning the match." Big Z's strength was recognized by Han Dong, and it even exceeded his expectations. Such strength would definitely provide a powerful assistance in ascension. Making a mask for him was as easy as lifting a finger. Big Z seemed very antisocial. He went to the outermost area alone and lay down to rest. Taking advantage of the intermission, Han Dong approached Miss Marrow, who was preparing to go on stage, and asked curiously, "Miss Marrow, other than his identity as a fighting champion in London, Big Z seems to have other identities. Can you tell?" "That's right. Big Z was banned from participating in fighting competitions a few years ago. 3 years ago, he became an important wanted criminal in London. It took him a year to become the criminal with the highest bounty in the history of London, and he was also quite famous enforcer justice. It was funny to say. As a hybrid demon, he couldn't stand the bad habits of his own kind. He would measure and punish villains according to his own definition of justice. In 3 years, he had killed more than 500 Dark Dwellers. Every time he killed a villain, he would inflict severe self-harm on himself in exchange for the forgiveness of the Mother of the Night. When he was finally caught, he was mutilating his face with a meat grinder at home. He was a real anomaly in London. After his arrest, he was sent to my hospital for a psychiatric evaluation, which I oversaw. Coincidentally, I had just come into contact with the vortex at that time. Big Z's appearance gave me my first experimental subject, who knew that his body showed a high degree of adaptability, even higher than everyone else's. Similarly, he and I were chosen by the priest to come to the parallel world. Executor, Moreau tidied up her clothes. She had no intention of continuing the conversation with Han Dong. "I'm going on stage. Wait for my good news." Due to Z's overwhelming performance, Marrow's confidence rose. Han Dong looked at the strange monk from the corner of his eyes and said reluctantly, "Do your best." Maelstrom Lady Marrow's eyeballs spun in her face. She said with a smile, "If I lose, you'll definitely die. Don't worry. Whether it's for the priest or for you, I'll be serious." After saying that, Marrow put on her white coat and stepped into the competition area in the image of a psychiatrist. At the same time, the Indian monk's hybrid demon also stepped into the tree world area barefoot. Han Dong stared at the monk opposite him and compared in his mind. It's not that simple. Although Campbell's strength is not bad, his specialty is flying movement. Just like the original bodies that came here, they all brought a mount. Campbell's position was more like flying snake mount that Miss Sally had recruited. At the same time, he was responsible for handling some small matters. But this new strange monk must be a combat type. His strength must have been recognized by Sally. Also, it's very strange. The feeling this monk gives me is completely different from other anthropomorphic hybrid demons. I keep feeling that something is strange, but I can't put my finger on it. We thought of this. Han Dong looked at the black goat, Sally, on the other side of the arena, to see if he could get some information from her. Unexpectedly, Sally actually blocked the tentacle communication that the two of them had established in advance. At the same time, she glared at Han Dong. She was obviously angry. "What does it have to do with me? I don't want anything to happen to Brother Campbell either." Han Dong could only shrug helplessly. He was just a bystander. Campbell's serious injury had nothing to do with him. At this moment, the competition began. Both of their gazes also shifted to the competition area. As soon as the competition started, the Whirlpool woman made an incredible move. She faced the main trunk of the crooked tree and pressed her entire face against it. Something strange happened. Marrow's face was pressed against the tree trunk. Due to the assimilation effect of the whirlpool, a whirlpool also appeared on the tree trunk. Immediately, Marrow's entire body was sucked into it. The entrance created by the whirlpool merged her body with the tree world, making perfect use of the scene factors. "Oh, there's this move too. I thought Marrow could only do something mentally." Han Dong decisively activated his little magic eye and saw through all the branches in the tree world. He had to raise his attention to a certain extent before he could see a whirlpool of fluid moving at high speed between the tree veins. When Marrow appeared again, she was directly in front of the strange monk. Zero distance. Mental hypnosis this time The intensity was even stronger than when she tested Han Dong in the bathroom. The two eyeballs spun at high speed in the sockets, as if forming a attractive mental channel to draw the opponent's consciousness to the whirlpool tower. Han Dong was able to quickly find the exit of the tower because of his special body. This move was indeed unavoidable against people of the same level as long as they were hit at zero distance. The whirlpool was the bane of hybrid demons. The hybrid demon's consciousness that was drawn into the whirlpool tower would fall into a state of confusion and would be lost for at least half an hour. He was hit. Marrow could clearly sense that a monk-like consciousness had been locked in the tower by her and was completely lost in it. It could be said that the outcome was clear. He was hit just like that. Looks like the teammates recruited by the original entity aren't that great. Let me remove your brain and see what kind of hybrid demon you are. Actually, it wasn't just Han Dong. When Marrow looked at the strange monk, she also felt a sense of dissonance. She felt that he didn't look like a hybrid demon, but more like a human. A dagger with a dark aura was held in Marrow's hand. This was her former chaos equipment, Skull Scraper. Just as Marrow was about to make her move, suddenly there was a shout from below the stage. "Marrow, get out of the way." The one who shouted was none other than Han Dong. The reason was simple. Han Dong had fully activated his demonic eye to capture Marrow's movements. Coincidentally, Han Dong saw a terrifying scene with the demonic eye's vision. The whirlpool hypnosis was very successful. However, the consciousness that Marrow had locked in the whirlpool tower was a kind-looking and honest monk. As this wisp of consciousness was moved away, a terrifying thing seemed to have been released. This guy isn't anthropomorphic. The true identity of this Indian monk should be a high-level warrior in Dragon City. Some kind of hybrid demon had formed a deep bond with the monk in the form of possession or parasitism. Although the hybrid demon was in a dominant position and controlled the monk's body and various actions, the monk's consciousness was still a high-level warrior. But as a high-level martial artist, the monk's consciousness always existed and even slowly turned into the good side of him. No wonder when I first saw this guy, I felt so out of place. And just now, the monk's good consciousness was sucked away by Marrow's whirlpool mystic technique at close range. Oh no! Instantly, countless green crystal compound eyes grew out of the strange monk's forehead like flies. Shamanal parasite seems to be a brain-anise bug. This dark dweller is really pitiful to have encountered such a thing. Count in his body also recognized the thing that had possessed the strange monk. Marrow sensed danger and wanted to merge her body into the tree trunk to avoid it. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The horny scimitar that popped out of the strange monk's arm like an insect's appendage had already cut her body into pieces. The strange monk's abdomen split open from the middle, turning into a body cavity full of saliva, fangs, rotten flesh, and tentacles. In the blink of an eye, Marrow's upper body was eaten. Chapter 1091. Alil. He was a senior monk of Dragon City's Vajra Temple. He was also a high-level warrior who had completed the door-opening skill. During a treasure hunt outside the city, Alaru and his teammates accidentally fell into a hidden Shane's lair. In order for his teammates to escape, Alaru held back the swarm of insects by himself. When the reinforcement team arrived, the lair was already empty and Alil was nowhere to be found. When everyone thought that Alil was dead, the leader of the Shane swarm, a parasitic-type atavism, tried to use the monk's body to perform a perfect parasitic. Because Alil's willpower was so strong that even when the swarm of insects used their race's parasitic secret technique, it couldn't erase his willpower. As a result, the two consciousnesses merged and gave birth to a new individual with a strange personality. Sometimes cruel, sometimes gentle. He could be recognized by the hybrid demons and appear in various hybrid demon cities. He could also be recognized by the Gate of Destiny and participate in various destiny events. Sometimes he could be seen practicing Buddhism in a cave. Sometimes he could be seen wantonly slaughtering in small villages. On a branch, Because the monk's consciousness was extracted by marrow, the evil side of Shane's parasitic body was completely released. The Indian monk that originally looked strange could no longer maintain his human form. The basic human framework was still there. On this foundation, the characteristics of the insect expanded. The fly-like compound eyes covered his forehead. The entire head was cracked, and the brain was divided into 6 organs that could perform different functions. The feeding system was transferred to the big mouth on the abdomen. The mouth on the face became a probing structure. The tongue and teeth turned into tentacles with sensory meatballs at the tip. A large number of appendages grew on the arms, armpits, and sides of the body. Most of them were knife-shaped cuticles. The 2 main arms of the strange monk didn't change. They maintained the form of human arms. He held a piece of equipment he obtained from the Destiny Realm, the Azure Cloud Stone Staff. It was a unique purple equipment that could be used to combo. There were also dozens of transparent wings without muscles and bones on his back. The Whirlpool's hypnosis allowed Shane's parasites to completely control the body and achieve perfect fusion. Its strength was far higher than 1 + 1 is equal to 2. It could exert strength comparable to a body of origin. The Whirlpool didn't even have time to react. Her head was eaten and her body was cut. However, Marrow was no longer a hybrid demon. As a shifter, she was like a saint-ranked life form. She moved the center of everything to her heart. A twisted heart that looked like a whirlpool was twisting itself, trying to escape. However, the strange monk, who had completed his ultimate transformation, naturally would not miss such details with the compound eye on his forehead. It was different from the series of brutal attacks, just now. A Buddhist staff technique was perfectly executed along with the Azure Cloud Stone Staff in his hand. Although it seemed like he had only swung his staff once, in reality, he had already unleashed 5 consecutive staff strikes. Through the special properties of his Destiny equipment, he had stacked all of his attacks together and focused them all on a single point. Ha! The spiral-shaped heart was instantly shattered, and the outcome of the battle was decided. He won the second round of Tree by killing his opponent. The demonic youth made a disgusted expression on the sidelines. Disgusting insect. I didn't think that there would be a highly intelligent existence among these lowly insects. Furthermore, it had unexpectedly chosen to use humans as its carrier. The effect seems to be even better than parasitic hybrid demons. However, it's still very disgusting. Just looking at it makes me want to vomit. Because on the planet he had grown up on, there were also lowly insects like this. Even when the demonic youth was young, he had been served by these strange insects for a period of time. The food provided to him was naturally a feast of insects with a very strong taste. This also caused him to want to vomit whenever he saw these insects. Compared to the demonic youth's disgust, Han Dong was so surprised that he directly stood up from the recliner. He was not surprised by the death of the Whirlpool woman, but because it was the first time he had seen such an interesting and powerful parasitic hybrid demon. This guy can not only completely display its own characteristics on the host, but also completely retain the host characteristics. While displaying the brutal abilities of the hybrid demons, it can also use the martial arts that the host learned in Dragon City and control the Destiny equipment. Count, are these insects also interesting? Yes. Count could tell that Han Dong was up to something. Not interesting at all. This kind of insect is very disgusting. Even the hybrid demon circle, everyone sneered at it. It is a lowly and disgusting existence. The one you are currently facing should be the elite of the elite, an anomaly among these parasites. This group of parasites is very weak, so they need to rely on the host to grow. The probability of them becoming a hybrid demon is only 1 in 10,000. Not to mention becoming a mature body, even if it is the same as this Count's atavistic body. The one you've encountered is 1 in a billion. Even for me, this is the first time I've seen an atavistic shame parasite. Don't even think about bringing a group of disgusting insects to your manor. Otherwise, your manor will be destroyed in 2 days. This thing's reproduction speed is faster than any life form you have ever seen. Whether it is organic or inorganic, they can quickly parasitize. So interesting. When the competition is over, I will try to communicate with this insect. Count's words directly had a reverse effect. It made Han Dong even more determined to study the hybrid demon parasites. If this idea could be successfully applied to experimental specimens, it would bring a wave of qualitative improvement to Han Dong's manor and his army. Hey, you are. Beep, beep, beep. Han Dong immediately cut off the communication with Count's consciousness. Next would be a crucial segment. He would be fighting against the fourth origin, Miss Sally. The competition was one thing. In Han Dong's plan, he would also use this competition to achieve a certain goal. In a situation where no one was optimistic, Han Dong, dressed as a bird-beaked doctor, stepped into the tree world that was full of vitality. No one paid attention to this competition because of the disparity in strength. Everyone present knew the strategy of Tianji's horse race. Han Dong was seen as the weakest transformer, and now he would be facing the fourth origin. Even if the competition ended in 1 second, everyone would think it was very normal. At this moment, Black Goat Sally also stepped into the battle zone. The two stood between the branches 500 meters apart and did not move for the time being. Because of the victory in the last competition, Sally was no longer angry. The tentacle communication she had established with Han Dong in advance was reopened. Their consciousnesses were standing at the border between the desert and the Black Forest. Sally scrutinized Han Dong. It seems that you have successfully gained the trust of Father Lysos. You must have dug up a lot of information. Have you determined the final goal of the priest? No. To what extent will the world's erosion reach? I don't know. Then what inside information do you know? It's basically at the guessing stage. I'm not sure yet. Han Dong's I don't know confused Sally a little. Didn't you swear before that leaving you alone in the church would help me win the bet? Han Dong nodded with a sincere expression. That's right. So far, everything has been going smoothly. Next, I just need you to seriously fight with me. Miss Sally and the plan can be carried out smoothly. However, having said that, Sally, who had deeply interacted with Han Dong for a few days, still trusted this mysterious young man more. Han Dong's early performance had been very successful, and some of his actions had even exceeded Sally's expectations. As for Han Dong's suggestion of being serious for the first round, Sally treated it as an act. If your plan is to win the competition and obtain the right to ascend, I can surrender directly. Han Dong had an awkward expression and hurriedly waved his hand to indicate. No, Miss Sally, don't misunderstand. It's a real fight, the especially serious kind. If it's an act, it might be a little mixed. After all, the two of us are so familiar with each other. There's no need for us to fight to the death. When the crucial moment comes, I'll still use my consciousness to contact you. Do you really want to die? Sally was not arrogant, but the difference in level was there. She admitted that Han Dong was very special and had a strong view of the big picture, but in terms of strength, Sally believed that she was much stronger. Come, Miss Sally. Chapter 1092. It was the match between Han Dong and Sally the Black Goat. Most people thought that it was meaningless and believed that it would end in a few seconds. However, there were still a few people who were paying attention to this match, even more so than the previous matches. First of all, there was the fifth essence, the revered Eugenus. Because Eugenus had a special cooperative relationship with Sally in private, and he knew in advance that Han Dong was Sally's informant. However, in some early observations, Eugenus discovered that Han Dong was not as simple as an informant. When Eugenus' eyeball stared at Han Dong, two strange situations would occur. 1. Eugenus' primordial pupil technique and tentacle vision still could not see through Han Dong's head. The thick gray fog blocked Han Dong's face, and Eugenus even felt uncomfortable after staring at it for a long time. When he stared at Han Dong with his eyeball, there would be a resonance between the eyeballs. It was as if Han Dong also cultivated a similar eye technique, and the level of the eye technique was not inferior to his. Compared to the previous matches, Eugenius was more interested in this match. Perhaps Han Dong, as an informant, would not admit defeat so easily, and there would be an unexpected showdown. In addition, Eugenius also had certain thoughts about Sally. Or rather, many of the hybrid demons had impure thoughts about Sally. When it came to espouse, Sally, as the descendant of the Black Goat, was definitely the best choice. Sally, look at the changes you've undergone during this time. In addition to Eugenius, there was another person who was paying attention to this match. It was the referee, Father Evernight. The priest was not an ordinary, mythical form. There was more than one mythical form in London, but he was the only one who was valued by his mother and was even made an assistant. At the same time, Father Lessos had also obtained his mother's permission to establish the influential Church of Evernight on the surface of London. It could be said that the priest held more than 80% of the real power in London, and he had fought for these rights himself. As long as the teachers in London were related to the Church of Evernight, they regarded Father Lessos as an existence on par with his mother. These deeds were enough to prove his power. The importance of this selection competition was self-evident. Bigsy and Moreau were subordinates carefully selected by Father Lessos. In the case of needing to fill in the third party, the priest took the initiative to head to the outer passageway to select members. The reason why Kieran chose Han Dong wasn't just because he killed a blacksmith. More importantly, when the priest was reviewing the scene of the battle, he discovered many interesting remnants of attributes. There were even several types of divinity, thus concluding that Han Dong was special. It was just that he didn't say it verbally. Furthermore, as a mythical body, Father Lessos could see things more comprehensively. He could vaguely guess Han Dong's true identity. Currently, holding a black umbrella, the priest whose body was shrouded in darkness was looking forward to this young man who he had picked up at the last minute to perform unexpectedly. Black goat offspring, tentacles. The purple tentacles can confuse the enemy, simulating the enemy's most beloved object on the mental level and completely charming the target through the stimulation of releasing a courtship gas. High-level individuals can strengthen the charm effect through tentacle isomerization. For example, during anthropomorphization, their lips, teeth, fingers, or some other special parts may be fused with tentacles, giving humans an extremely strong visual impact that is difficult to resist. Goat hooves. Inherited from the lower limbs of the black goat, it was born with the characteristic of great crushing strength. High-level individuals can give their mother's divinity when they crush, and their destructive power increases exponentially. Curse of the Black Forest. The black goat offspring can cast some ancient curses that originated from the Black Forest according to its own attributes. For example, the mature black goat that Han Dong first met in the outskirts of London could be marked with curse, goat hooves, by touching it. The branded target would be heavily crushed no matter where it was. This was only a relatively rough curse, and the high-level curse cast by Miss Sally was even more terrifying. The black goat offspring, this group of people with the blood of the old king, was also a high-level species in the hybrid demon circle. That is to say, if the level is the same, the black goat offspring are often stronger. But for the mother of the black goat that gave birth to millions of offspring, these children still had a big difference. For example, the concentration of blood, talent, or the heterogeneity during childbirth. Currently, Han Dong's opponent, partner, the fourth origin, Sally, had almost all the advantages of the offspring. At the same time, she was also one of the black goat's favorite daughters. The camera cut back. Miss Sally had agreed to Han Dong's request to fight seriously. The whole body released a purple-black aura, and this aura could actually assimilate the surrounding air. Drip, 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 sticky black liquid condensed in the air and dripped down. When the black mucus came into contact with the branches, it immediately induced the branches to change. The tree of fairyland that seemed to be full of life was slowly turning into a black tree filled with curses, malice, corruption, and love, similar to the trees in the Black Forest. The domain changed the environment. The crazy youth showed a surprised expression and commented on Sally's change. "Oh, little Sally has also grown. This way, she will definitely be able to give birth to offspring on the scale of a medium-sized city." The transformation of the Black Forest. On the other side, Handong didn't move at all and even close his eyes. Currently, his consciousness was still in the void laboratory in his head, undergoing a charging. Spotted Toad Merites was the only core of the demon toad, Void Toad, the Toad Pearl. She was brought to the Void Laboratory by Handong. The power bank project that he had been planning for a long time would come in handy here. After a series of modifications, a stable energy channel was finally built in the Void Laboratory, embedded in the Toad Pearl. The entire Void Laboratory had a feeling of being lit up. Mysterious runes with starlight appeared on the walls of the laboratory. The void power that Handong could control increased by more than 3 times. Of course, Meritus also benefited at the same time. She would use the Void Laboratory to go to the deep space of the universe for the first time. She would comprehend the higher space, void, that existed in the deep space, wander among the stars, and even have the opportunity to meet the bubble and get guidance. Back to reality. The surface of Handong's legs immediately reflected the same mysterious runes of the Void Laboratory, which brought an indescribable increase to Handong. Is it coming? At this time, Miss Sally began to move. The goat's hooves left footprints on the surface of the branches, and a huge force carried Sally from the front. Her fighting style was very direct. Since Handong wanted to fight seriously, she would crush him from the front. Instantly, the distance between them was shortened to 100 meters. Sally's left and right palms reflected different types of curse runes, and the goat's hooves were ready to trample at any time. Unexpectedly, Handong suddenly disappeared from her sight. She smelled an extremely rare, starry sky scent. When Sally wanted to react, caw! The crow's cry echoed in her brain. A living crow staff had already landed on Sally's face. It looked like it was swinging a baseball, hitting Sally's forehead with brute force. Clang! The sound was like a home run level hit, and it was the sound of a good bone hitting. Sally's entire body was sent flying. Chapter 1093. No one would have thought that this would be a mere formality. However, in less than 3 seconds after the start of the match, the 4th origin substance, Black Goat Sally, had failed. Not only that, but her head had also been hit by her opponent's tremendous force. This kind of attack was not weak at all. Handong did not hold back at all in this home run. His right arm provided strength, and his left arm provided black magic. He wrapped the epic raven staff in a thick aura of death and hit Sally's forehead with the strongest force. This immediately attracted the attention of the other hybrid demons and craftsmen. As for Eugenus, who had been watching the match carefully from the beginning, he noticed more details in the fight just now, especially the secret runes that appeared on Handong's calf. Eugenus reached out and touched his chin with the dark green tentacles that grew out of his fingers. Void! Could this guy be an important chess piece that the Void Dominator hid in the London game? It was extremely difficult to obtain the Void attribute. Among the numerous hybrid demons that pursued the secrets of space, there were only a handful that could truly touch the Void. The Void corresponded to the deeper planes, representing the higher, confusing, and most primitive forms of space. Most spatial sealing abilities were unable to completely seal the deeper layers of the Void. Very few hybrid demons could live in the Void. However, Eugenus quickly rejected his own opinion. If the Void Dominator wants to interfere in this London event, there's a high chance that he'll send out the 2nd origin substance. Moreover, this guy's main attribute is not the Void, but the gray substance on his head. He's more like a descendant of that existence. Moreover, the Void only appears on his calf, and is purely used for transfer. Interesting, that attack just now also contained a divinity of death that doesn't belong to this world. Sally will probably be very angry, and the next match will be very exciting. Visual switch, Handong, it seemed like a successful surprise attack, but Han Dong did not have any expression of excitement. Even the joy of perfectly using the void steps had completely dissipated. Although Han Dong knew that the origin substance was a monster-level existence in the hybrid demon circle and could not be applied to it by conventional hybrid demons, Sally's physical attributes were too exaggerated. Hard. Han Dong stared at his trembling arm and his cracked perlicue. That strike just now was like hitting an extremely hard surface, and the recoil almost peeled off his thumb. How can Miss Sally be so hard? In terms of hardness, she is even harder than Togu. Although Han Dong had observed beforehand that Sally's fighting style leaned towards close combat, he did not expect that other parts of her body would be so hard apart from her goat's hooves. On the other side, Sally, who had suffered a heavy blow, was about to fly out of the border. Suddenly, the thick aura of the black forest spread out from her hooves. Some sort of gravity effect had taken effect on the black mountain goat leg. He stopped her from flying backward and dragged Sally's body down by force. Ka. Just by relying on the weight of the goat's hooves, it broke 3 thick branches in succession. Where he landed, Sally's aura had completely changed. A terrifying mantis demon from the Black Forest had opened her eyes. Indeed, Sally had a good impression of Han Dong, especially when the two of them had gone to the Dreamlands together and worked together in the Thorn Church. Therefore, when they fought earlier, Sally purposely used human to bind herself. She planned to fight seriously with Han Dong using the human's fighting style. From the fight earlier, this kind of pity was completely unnecessary. Sally touched her slightly scratched forehead. There was still some black sand in the wound. Her fingers turned into tentacles, repairing and cleaning the wound. A strange smile appeared under the black veil. "Nicholas, you still have so many tricks up your sleeve. It's my fault. I will treat this match seriously." At that moment, the aura that spread throughout Sally's body was changing. Tentacles dripping with black mucus drilled out from the pores of her body. A large number of tentacles flowed out, but they did not change their basic form, nor did they change the mantis demon's original form. These tentacles that drilled out from the pores were all under Sally's precise control. They were weaving a special kind of living armor for her. The tentacles on her face combined with the veil, forming a living mask that only revealed her eyes. The soft tentacles spread all over her body in a very orderly manner, forming a light shell that fit Sally's body. Tentacle armor, Black Goat. It allowed Sally to unleash the strength of her original mantis demon form under the premise of humanization. Her attributes would increase exponentially. When the armor was about to be attached, Sally put her arm in her mouth and pulled something out. A whip-like object that looked like a tentacle with spikes and leather structures was taken out of her body. The inner wall of the main body was engraved with high-level secret runes from the depths of the Black Forest. Chaos weapon. Yumakal's whip of curses, epic. When Eugenus, who was watching the battle, saw this whip, some bad memories appeared in his mind. He even felt his skin hurt. He had lost to this whip in the game of Origin Essence. The main function of this whip was not physical attacks, but as a carrier of curses. Han Dong was still very familiar with whips. The one who also used a whip as a weapon was the commander of the Expeditionary Army's Scarlet Knights, Shea Cromwell. Because of the sacred blood, Han Dong had often been whipped. At this moment, the Sally that Han Dong observed with his magic, I was no longer the reserved lady of the past. Her entire body had turned into an extremely terrifying monster that could corrode the entire tree world. Tentacle armor. This is a high-level tentacle technique, and a cursed whip from the Black Forest. With one whip, an individual will fall into a quagmire of curses. No matter how strong their defense is, it will be useless. Nicholas, hurry up and admit defeat. I don't want to fight such a monster. Count was terrified. If there was a bloodhound beside Han Dong at this moment, it would probably have run away with its tail between its legs. Don't be a coward. If he could win the match, even if it was a draw, it would make the follow-up plan easier. I can't beat Miss Sally alone. I need your help, Count. This time, Han Dong's words were unusually calm. even with a hint of pleading. I really can't fight. The gap is too big. Miss Sally and I have a good relationship. She won't kill me. Count, without your help in this match, I will definitely lose. Please help me once. Such an extremely rare request made Count's heart tremble for a moment. Let me say this first. I won't fight to the death. And I'll be frank. If you give me the body, I won't even have a 10% chance of winning. What do you want me to do? Let's fight separately. I will strip off a part of my body, and you will control it in the form of a bloodhound. How much do you strip off? Count is now an atavistic body. At least half an arm and a nether blood necklace can unleash more than 80% of my ability. The nether blood necklace, the dead man's finger glove, and both arms are yours. Huh? You want to die? This is the only way I can think of to defeat Sally. If I give you both arms, can you unleash 120% of your strength? Yes. What do you want to do? I want to get rid of some unnecessary attributes and make myself purer. Chapter 1094. Since the end of the original game, I haven't used the Black Forest shell for a long time. Since you can control the power of the void so skillfully, I'll play with you today. What are you doing? Sally stepped on the branches and was about to teach Han Dong a lesson with her whip. However, because of the abnormal scene, she suddenly stopped on a branch 100 meters away. This was because Han Dong was undergoing an unimaginable transformation. Pa! Pa! The sound of two objects falling to the ground was heard. Han Dong's left and right arms fell to the ground at the same time. Warning! Warning! Important body part. Sacred Blood Corpse arm has been removed. Important body part. Undying arm has been removed. Body is in a weakened state. Please recall and reinstall the body parts in a short time. Not only did he receive the warning from the faceless skull, but even Han Dong himself could feel a sense of weakness. The two arms represented Han Dong's development path from the beginning to the present, but now they were completely cut off. His combat power was reduced by at least 80%. At the same time, Count's consciousness was also separated. As soon as the two arms fell to the ground, the right hand immediately grew a net of blood vessels and mixed with the black sand formed by the left hand. Under the control of Count's consciousness, they combined into an independent body. The situation where two arms were completely cut off had never happened before. This also caused the blood dog to be constructed this time to be completely different. At the same time, this was also Count's breakthrough attempt to form an independent body outside of his body. He needed to integrate the death power that had killed him into the body of the blood descendant. The two were likely to reject each other and become incompatible. Blood Oath's Master. Roghorn's blood skull, damaged. This equipment had almost become Count's exclusive item. It would play an extremely important role in the fusion process. With the help of the evil god's blood, Hell's blood, which came from another world, the Count's bloodline essence was also changing, becoming a rotten and broken blood life form. In the system of blood, death and blood did not conflict. The two could exist at the same time and even reach a new height. Drip, drip, drip. The decayed blood dripped to the ground. A bloodhound that looked completely different from before and exuded an aura of atavism appeared beside Han Dong. It was no longer as fleshy as before. Instead, it was more slender and withered. Ghastly, twisted, and slender fangs pierced through his upper and lower lips and were distributed chaotically on the outside of his face. Its entire body was bright red, but some parts of its body revealed its white bones. It was even possible to peek into the internal structure of its body through the gaps between its ribs from its lower abdomen, which was completely open. His spine, which was covered in blood vessels, was exposed, and his entire body was emitting a thick aura of death. To think that the compatibility between death and blood was so high, Count really had some skills. Even Han Dong gave him a very high evaluation. Count's talent was not bad, and in terms of personality, Count was a type of hybrid demon that liked to pursue new things. He was not satisfied with his status as a bloodline descendant. Therefore, he showed a high degree of enthusiasm and adaptability when fusing with other abilities. This feels pretty good. Perhaps I can really defeat the fourth origin substance. The fusion of attributes greatly boosted Count's confidence. Feeling the brand new attitude and brand new ability system, Count cracked his fangs and revealed a rare, genuine smile. This was the reason why he was willing to follow Han Dong. Count, whose consciousness was left in Han Dong's body, saw too many abilities that he could not come into contact with when he was alive. Although he could not possess Han Dong's body, as long as he could borrow Han Dong's body to have some fun, see a wider world through Han Dong's body, and reach heights that he could not reach himself, Count was very satisfied. He opened his mouth with fangs, and the aura of death exuded from within. Count's voice rang out. "Hey, don't tell me you want to use yourself as a wooden dummy to attract the opponent's attention so that I can find a chance to attack. Even if I can show this attitude, it's still very difficult to defeat the fourth origin substance. Don't worry. If we rely on you, we won't be able to fight. The gap between you and Sally is still too big. Don't panic, wait for me." Han Dong had already closed his eyes. His consciousness body stood at the bottom of the talent tree and had already eaten several smiling red fruits in succession. He deliberately let his vitality overflow to bear the upcoming changes in his body. The black vortex torso will definitely bear the changes in the body. I just hope my consciousness can bear it. I don't faint from the pain during this process. Since Han Dong was reborn and obtained the head, he had obtained the two abilities of portable prison and imitation. In essence, these two abilities were related from the beginning. In the past, when carrying out some destiny events, there had been a combination of the two abilities. For example, shooting out iron chains from Toga's arms, borrowing Miss Chun Li's kitchen knife, or growing out octopus tentacles from Nicole's back. But these were all shallow applications. What Han Dong had to do next was the advanced application, deep imitation. In the prison cell, gray-mottled tentacles grew out of the wall and connected to the back of Toga's head, back, limbs, and heart. Deep imitation, Togu Gonzalez, Great Demon. Needs to take up weight, 400. Try to synchronize normally. Warning. If the synchronization rate is lower than 60%, rejection will occur. The imitation will be removed due to individual damage. The black vortex on the surface of the torso was spinning faster than before, adapting to the changes in the body. Swish! Magma dripped. A red-hot iron chain drilled out of the gaps on both sides of his shoulders. The surface of the iron chain was densely packed with spikes made of iron nails, and the ends of the iron nails were rapidly multiplying with a dark golden demon flesh. Not only that, but other parts of Han Dong's body also had iron nails growing out. The pain was unbearable even for Count. This kind of deep imitation still needed a certain amount of time. Judging from the speed of the flesh's growth, it would take at least a minute. This process is really painful, but the next time I do the imitation, the time can be shortened. I believe Miss Sally will give me enough time to change. This process is very necessary. It is not only for me to adapt to the needs of Toga's body, but also for the others to see clearly. Thinking of this, Han Dong wanted to open his eyes and see Sally's situation. Unexpectedly, Sally, who was originally 100 meters away, had already disappeared. Count, who had smelled danger, was already guarding Han Dong's side, ready to deal with the surprise attacks from all directions. Who knew? A heavy sheep's hoof fell rapidly, and a very miserable dog's bark was heard. Count didn't have time to adapt to his new body before the sheep's hoof stepped on his back, even directly breaking the exposed spine that had just formed. Blood Dog fell like a bullet, breaking more than 10 branches in succession and falling into the bottommost pool, after sending Count flying with a kick. Sally had no intention of waiting at all. After all, her forehead was still stinging where Han Dong had hit it. Thinking of this made her angry. She directly whipped Han Dong's body, which was undergoing a transformation, and injected the curse. One whip was not enough to relieve her anger. She continuously waved the curse whip like a storm falling on Han Dong's body, which was undergoing a transformation. This scene was very familiar. Putting aside the curse, perhaps it was because of the synchronization with Togu, but this kind of whip was exceptionally comfortable. Chapter 1095. Perspective Change, Minano City, Italo's Border. The preset duration of the Great Expedition was about 5 to 10 years. In fact, if it was just a simple journey, from the Holy City to London, considering the series of hybrid demon attacks along the way, setting up camp to recuperate, and all kinds of mental healing. Due to the support of endless energy, a year was more than enough. The reason why it was set for such a long time was that the Great Expedition was divided into several stages. Every time a stage was completed, the expeditionary army would have a long negotiation and rest. At the same time, they would also send some knights or elite knights with potential to develop through the Gate of Destiny in the hybrid demon city to the Space of Destiny to undergo relevant trials. Just as Han Dong had guessed, the Great Expedition was the greatest and most meaningful operation in human history. It was not as simple as broadening one's horizons or winning some battles. The Great Expedition was an important step for humans. It was also a step for humans to use their own strength as a stepping stone to try to be on equal footing with the hybrid demons. The first stage was the Battle of Minano. Under the circumstances that conformed to the rules of the world, humans won. Defeating the mythical entity and the large land deed that it controlled had extraordinary significance. Because humans had been completely deprived of the right to hold the land deed in prehistoric times. Therefore, the real reward brought about by the victory of the war was only the remaining hybrid demon resources in Minano and the hidden gold veins underground to compensate for the endless energy. However, these real rewards were secondary. Humans had won an opportunity through this battle, an opportunity to talk to the old king. The realization of these processes was all thanks to the deciphering of the hybrid demon slate by the Secret Word Knights. Humans could use the normal battle challenges as a stepping stone to increase their self-worth and obtain the opportunity to talk to the old king. However, the process was slightly different from the deciphering process on the slate. According to the information given by the Secret Word Knights, the one who should talk to the expeditionary army should be the old middle-level king who represented evil and filth behind Minano. Who knew? When the war was won, a gate of stars opened in the central open space. From a human's perspective, a mysterious person served by a bartender and his head was covered by a nebula. The appearance of this person directly replaced the old king behind Minano's land deed and took the initiative to have a conference-like conversation with the humans. The meeting lasted for an entire week. Although the final result wasn't as good as expected, it wasn't too bad either. Moreover, the old king he was talking to was a superior being who held absolute authority. His promise was enough to put the expeditionary army at ease. In response to the human's request, this person also gave a precondition. I hope you can reach London within a year and a half. If you can perform well there, I will personally consider restoring your qualifications. As for the specific situation in London, you will naturally know when you arrive. This request meant that the Great Expedition would need to be compressed from the original plan. The expeditionary army was also temporarily stationed in Minano City. Through the Eye of Expedition, he contacted the Holy City hundreds of kilometers away and revised the route plan of the Great Expedition, cutting out some unnecessary processes and compressing the overall plan. However, Malone had always been against the idea of reducing the expedition's progress. He was not willing to accept the fact that the human race had spent so much resources, energy, and manpower on this great expedition, but they actually had to cooperate with the hybrid demons. This caused many battles to be unable to be carried out, and the related chaotic materials and secret treasures could not be obtained. Due to the intensification of some of the details, Malone did not participate in the subsequent meetings. He considered using Minano's Gate of Destiny to go to hell to relax. Just as Malone was heading to the gate of destiny alone, a strong cold air of death, accompanied by a skeleton horse, blocked Malone's path. The Grim Reaper on the horse advised, "Malone, now is not the time to go to hell. If something were to happen in the infernal realm, you would be delayed for months or even years. Moreover, the reduction of the expedition's progress has also been approved by the Parliament. You are right. To a certain extent, we are catering to the needs of the hybrid demons. But the essence of our purpose of leaving the city is to negotiate with the hybrid demons. I'm out to kill the enemy. I can't kneel to negotiate." At this moment, the ash crown, which symbolized the identity of the king of hell, suddenly appeared on Malone's head. Normally, this kind of performance would only appear when one was in combat mode. "Malone, do you want to fight?" Alex took out his silver scythe, and the aura of death overflowed. Wait, Malone had no intention of fighting at all. He looked in a certain direction. Swoosh! Suddenly, a pair of demon wings grew from his back and carried him up to a height of 100 meters. The appearance of the ash crown was not a subjective idea of Malone. It was stimulated by some kind of homologous reaction. Seeing this, Alex also flew up and followed beside Malone. A great demon of extremely high purity. What's going on? Could it be that the great demon came to our world through the gate of destiny? Alex, where does this direction lead? Could it be London? Malone immediately fell into deep thought. Could it be that the cataclysm foreseen by Mr. Black and White and the group of prophets and writers has already arrived in advance? Is this the reason why the old king asked us to rush to London in advance during the previous meeting? Seriously, why didn't he say so earlier? Let the great demon quickly decide on the compression plan. We should prepare to leave in advance. You bastard. Alex also felt helpless, but Malone's character was like this. Speaking of which, the demonic reaction that Malone received was also an extremely important piece of information. The expeditionary army had to take it into consideration. In fact, this homologous reaction did not come from the great demon that crawled out of hell. It came from Han Dong. Perhaps it was a coincidence, but such a coincidence pushed the cogwheel of the world to fit and rotate. Han Dong, who was participating in the London game, had reached an unprecedented special state. Sally waved the Yumakults, whip of curses in her hand, and fiercely whipped Han Dong's body that was in the midst of simulation. The main effect of the long whip was to transmit and amplify the effects of curses. It could whip the curses into the target's body. But the current situation was very strange. When most of the curses penetrated Han Dong's skin, they were actually offset by a kind of hell scripture that was stored in the soul. The curses are offset. There are changes at the soul level. At this moment, Han Dong, whose body was enjoying the whipping, was undergoing the final consciousness simulation with Togu. Scenes of hell, monastery scenes, and terrifying suffering were all imprinted into Han Dong's soul through the simulation of consciousness. Synchronization rate, 100%. Instantly, the gate of truth appeared in front of Han Dong once again. With Togu as the support, Han Dong obtained the opportunity to temporarily touch the body of the door. This also meant that Han Dong would temporarily reach the level of atavism. Waves of rich, demonic aura constantly overflowed from Han Dong's body. The Great Demon Mode had been activated. Chapter 1096. A scorched aura gushed out from Han Dong's body. Sally smelled a hint of danger from it and quickly withdrew her whip. She landed 100 meters away and quietly observed the changes that were happening to Han Dong's body. Even his essence was changing. From Sally's perspective, she could vaguely see a steel demon that had just crawled out of the lava. It was covered in iron nails and had a curved horn on its forehead. Its level was the same as hers. This power from another world can actually forcefully increase the growth. Nicholas, how many secrets are you hiding? Sally couldn't help but recall her acquaintance and understanding with Han Dong. Indeed, Han Dong had too many secrets from the beginning. He wasn't affected by charm, could unleash strength equivalent to atavism at the mature level and had connections with many old kings. Even Sally, who had seen countless men, became more and more interested. After a while, the demonic aura retracted into Han Dong's body. The simulation was complete. The reason why the simulation reached 100% on the first attempt was largely due to the clown's black vortex torso. This level of adaptability was no joke. Great Demon, Suffering Posture 1. Slender iron nails connected to the flesh were arranged in a regular pattern all over his body. It was a characteristic of Togu's monks. It was a primitive manifestation of suffering. Currently, it was perfectly displayed on Han Dong's body. It looked quite painful. 2. Demonic characteristics also appeared. Han Dong's pupils turned completely black. Integu's monk characteristics had no demonic horns, tail, or hooves. It was the same for Han Dong. 3. 2 special demonic arms were reconstructed from Togu's characteristics at the gap in the shoulders. In addition to the iron nails on the surface, they also showed the characteristics of steel muscles and interlaced iron chains. The bones of the arms were made of iron chains. The flesh was made of hell steel. Blood as hot as lava flowed in the blood vessels. 4. The raven staff that was soul-bound to Han Dong was also attached with hell attributes. The surface of the ghostwood staff reflected traces of lava patterns. The living crow at the top of the staff seemed to have fallen into lava and was reborn. A large number of feathers fell off, revealing red-hot bones and a body cavity full of lava. Raven, Hell Mode boosted black magic, but it could also be used on Hell magic. 5. The robe gifted to me by Mr. Newton also transformed into a Hell Mage cloak in accordance with my current status. The magic patterns on the cloak were modified and the spell-casting efficiency was increased. Abnormally powerful. While Han Dong was immersed in this state of imitation, he even recalled other anomalies. Since they can imitate Togu in depth, Nicole and Miss Chun-Li should be able to imitate him as well. Maybe when the London game ends, we can use the Door of Destiny to bring Chun-Li out. When the form stabilized, Han Dong's thoughts returned to the present. He immediately bowed to the black goat, Sally, who was 100 meters away. A kind of overlapping sound came from the mouth full of iron nails, similar to Han Dong's and Toga's voices overlapping. Thank you, Miss Sally. If you were serious just now, I'm afraid I will be dead. This is the first time I've tried to change my form. I didn't expect it to take so long. Han Dong knew very well that Sally's whips, just now, were just to avenge her previous feud with the staff. She only used a small amount of curses, and most of them were physical blows. This kind of whipping actually increased the synchronization rate. She expressed her gratitude to Han Dong. Sally chose the most primitive and violent way to respond. Thud! 2 extremely deep hoof prints were left on the surface of the branch. Under the buff of the tentacle armor, Sally obtained an explosive speed buff. She turned into a black shadow and directly appeared above Han Dong's head. Crack! The crisp sound of a whip rang out. The thorny purple whip hit Han Dong's body. This time, the whip was not as heavy as before, but the effect was completely different. Purple lines immediately spread out from the spot where the whip hit, as if drawing a bird's-eye view of the forest. Sizzle. Correspondingly, steam kept rising. The lava and monk attributes flowing in Han Dong's body were rejecting the brand of the curse. However, it would take a certain amount of time to completely dispel the curse. Curse of the Black Forest. Damage amplification after the long whip hit. Sally changed to a kick. Her main attack was still the 2 different hooves, the same way she used to attack Count just now. From top to bottom. Heavy crush. The effect of the curse immediately took effect, together with the divine blessing inside the hooves. When Han Dong looked up, he saw a huge hooves that could cover the sky. There was nowhere to hide. This was not an illusion, but the effect of the curse on reality. A curse that can affect reality. Is this the power of the 4th origin? There was no way to dodge. He could only take it head-on. The demon arm, covered in iron chains, stretched up. Clang, clang, clang. A large number of red-hot iron chains continued to drill out of the palm and spread out like a spider web, increasing the load-bearing area. Even though Han Dong was prepared to take the heavy crush the moment the hooves touched the palm, puff, a mouthful of hot blood spurted out from his mouth. Even the cultured Han Dong could only utter two words, F***CK. Crack. The thick branch under his feet instantly broke, and his body fell. Sally's heavy crush was not just a matter of strength. It also had a kind of destructive power that could affect and destroy the structure of an individual. Han Dong, who was falling rapidly between the trees, still maintained a supporting posture with his arms. He had to block the terrifying hooves above his head. If the hooves touched his head, things would be troublesome. Every time a branch was broken, the iron chains in Han Dong's arms would make a similar sound. It could be seen how terrifying Sally's heavy crush was. If this continued, sooner or later, he would not be able to hold on. However, as the attacker, Sally's expression was not good either. The hooves were as important as hundreds of tentacles. When she crushed Han Dong, intense pain constantly came from the bottom of the hooves. On the one hand, it came from the high temperature, but more of it was a kind of stabbing pain, as if someone took a meter-long iron nail and hammered it into her hooves. The iron nail penetrated her calf and pierced her knee, and it was still stirring. Sally felt a kind of pain that went deep into her soul. She had to grit her teeth to hold on. Pain? Is this your ability? The pain was unbearable, and Sally had to stop the heavy crush. She landed on a branch to rest for a while and take care of her hooves. Han Dong, who was hit by the heavy crush, continued to fall, breaking all the tree trunks along the way. Splash! With a splash, Han Dong fell into the ground of the fairyland pond. He sank a full 20 meters to offset the impact of the heavy crush. Han Dong was so scared that he was sweating profusely. If the heavy crush continued, the two newly formed demon arms would be completely broken in 3 seconds, and it would take a long time to repair them. Gurgle Gurgle, at this time, Count, who had been kicked into the water early, showed a gloating expression and swam over. I already said that this is the 4th primordial essence. A low-level character like you is no match for it, no matter how much you transform. At this time, Han Dong had no intention of quarreling or joking. Instead, he said with a serious face, Count, after such a long time, you should be used to it, right? What? Aren't you going to admit defeat? Later, I will continue to fight with Sally, and you will continue to hide under the water and wait for my instructions. You want to die? Yes. I want to try being killed by the hooves. Chapter 1097. With the Gate of Destiny as the basis, a saint-level world that had a part of the world infiltrated was indeed a good place. Han Dong, who had fallen into the lake due to the heavy crush. Not only was the lava in his body not extinguished by the lake water. Instead, he could absorb a type of energy particles contained in the lake water and obtain a faster energy recovery speed. It was no wonder that Count the Coward had been hiding below for so long. However, this was also a good thing. Han Dong hoped that Count's presence could be minimized until he was completely ignored. Count, you continue to stay below and listen to my orders. I'll go up and continue to play with Miss Sally. Clang, a few barbed chains wrapped around the branches closest to the water surface. They pulled Han Dong's body and steadily returned to the competition area. At this moment, Han Dong suddenly received a consciousness connection from Sally. Currently, the two of them were only separated by 5 branches. They could hear each other if they spoke directly. However, Sally requested to communicate through consciousness. It was obvious that she had something private to say. Their consciousnesses once again came to the boundary of consciousness that was established through communication. A slightly complaining tone came from Sally's mouth. What's up with your ability? It was so painful just now. Han Dong immediately heard some problems from this sentence. As one of the best original bodies among the hybrid demons, it was impossible for her to be as delicate as a noble lady. On the contrary, because of her pure bloodline and superior status compared to her peers, She had to undergo more training and participate in more life and death challenges. All kinds of injuries were common occurrences. Sally's so-called pain came from Togu's suffering type ability. Whether it was attacking or defending, she could transmit pain to the other party. This was indeed uncomfortable, but it was not to the extent that she would privately chat with Han Dong during a battle. This probably involved privacy issues. Miss Sally, could it be that your leg is afraid of pain? As if Han Dong had guessed it directly, Sally's eyes had a hint of mixed emotions. You guessed it barely. Noble direct blood flows in my leg. At the same time, at the end of the previous original body competition, I received a direct blessing from Mother. It is a true black goat leg. Usually, he would use Terramite, high-grade obsidian star, ore, and the hair-cleaning fluid from Teller's home planet for regular maintenance. My legs were my main means of physical attack, and they were also the toughest and most precious parts of my body. Your ability to transmit pain is very strange. It can destroy the nerve structure of the leg. It can also induce the growth of a nail type of hyperplastic tissue from my calf. If this continues, it will take me a long time to repair my legs, and it will also have a great impact on the future of the London Games. Can you be gentler? Han Dong looked helpless. In the battle, just now, he was the one who was truly injured. Both of his arms had almost been completely crushed by the goat's hooves. The pain he inflicted on Sally was also an automatic feedback when he defended himself. Miss Sally, there's a problem. Because of the series of exchanges between the two of us, I'm afraid that everyone at the scene is paying attention to this battle. If we go easy on each other, they will recognize it. And my original plan required me to fight seriously, even if one side was heavily injured. This was the only important plan I could think of, and the only one that could be carried out. If it doesn't work, not only will Sally lose the bet with the first Origin Essence, but we will also lose this London Games. Since Han Dong had said so, Sally had no other choice. I'll trust you this time. However, it's still very difficult for you to win against me in your current state. Well, I'll try my best. During the time, they communicated through their consciousness. The curse on Han Dong's back had been completely evaporated by the lava, and he returned to his normal state again. A strange smile hung on Han Dong's face. He seemed to be enjoying the battle with the top atavistic body, and also seemed to be excited by the demon state. In fact, this smile was the manifestation of the talent, lonely performer. In a one-on-one situation, the condition was met. Han Dong received a 60% increase in his overall strength, and the strange smile was the source of the increase. This is... The crazy youth also smelled a strange odor at this moment, and his gaze turned from Sally to Han Dong. A familiar yet strange aura was emitted from Han Dong's body. This feeling was very weak, as if it was a life in the crazy abyss. It only existed in the crazy youth's childhood memory, and he couldn't remember it now. At the same time, the intervener, the Golden Saint, who was quietly feeding the remaining craftsman team the golden liquid, also looked at the competition field. Thorns? Although the form has changed a lot and integrated with the attribute of Hell Iron, it's definitely the stigmata thorns in our saint-level world. Strange, his body has already expressed the whirlpool attribute, so why can he still accept thorns? Moreover, the pain of thorns he showed seemed to be higher than the thorns cultivator who was sent in the beginning. What's the origin of this little thing? I can't see through his body from so far away. Looks like I'll have to talk to him in private after the competition ends. I'll use him as bait and bring him to a saint-ranked world. Maybe he'll become an excellent experimental material. I'll even get a saint-ranked reward because of this. In the upper level of the tree world, Sally sat on a branch, and through the tentacles that grew out from her fingers, she drilled into her precious sheep's hooves as if she was pulling something out. Swish! A purple-black blood filled with the aura of love flowed out. The nail-like bone spurs were pulled out by Sally. There were a total of 7 of them, and each of them grew in the deepest part of her legs. If she didn't pull them out, the pain would continue to grow and even disturb and cut off the energy supply to her legs. Where did this guy learn this strange ability? Sally, who had just taken out the nails, suddenly felt a wave of heat coming from below her body. When she looked down, Han Dong raised the staff in his hand and drew a 3M x 3M hell magic circle in the air. Han Dong wasn't about to release an ordinary hell magic. It came from Togu's head, and it was the pain magic that was inherited from the hell cultivation courtyard. Hinge abdomen and evil, painful, and demonic magic was released. The magic circle connected with hell, and it turned into a minced meat abdomen that needed to be pixelated. The exposed abdomen was like a meat shredder in the monastery, and a large number of hinges shot out from the inside, heading straight for Miss Sally. Not less than double casting. Not greater than she was lucky. Han Dong's casting this time actually triggered the staff's special effect, triggering the effect of double casting. The hell crow at the end of the staff opened its mouth in an extremely exaggerated way and spat out the same hinges from its body. Moreover, the hinges spat out by the staff could be freely controlled by Han Dong. Void steps, Han Dong also immediately changed his position, circling to the blind spot behind Sally, forming a two-way strangulation. Facing the hinges coming from different directions, Sally revealed a gloomy smile, not panicking at all. First, she threw out the whip in her hand. The cursed whip turned into a stinky, rotten cursed meat net in the air, sealing the hinge abdomen below. It was even slowly swallowing this hell product. In this way, the attacks from below were blocked, and Sally only needed to focus on dealing with Han Dong. Crack, crack, crack. The sound of meat cracking. Sally's back suddenly split open, revealing a longitudinal opening that ran through her spine. Hand of the incubator, baby-skinned arms rushed out crazily, similar to the clerk's ability, but fundamentally different. These arms belonged to Sally's tentacle isomerization. They not only had the basic attributes of tentacles, but also contained life. Each arm had eyes, ears, nose, and mouth on the surface, and even some arms kept emitting the cries of babies. She grabbed the hinges shot out by Han Dong's staff. She used the incubating vitality contained in the arms to offset the pain transmitted by the hinges. She tried to use the brute force of the tentacles to pull Han Dong over, but she couldn't pull it. Sally looked up with a puzzled expression and found that a large number of gray tentacles grew out from the back of Han Dong's head. Tentacle enthusiast, talent enhancement, and pulled the staff. For a moment, it formed a kind of tentacle tug-of-war. Staring at Han Dong's tentacles, the hybrid demons at the scene fell into deep thought. Gray? Is it that Lord's subordinate? Gray. Gray. But it doesn't seem pure. What attribute does the internal spot represent? It's not a spot, but a kind of orderly imprint. I seem to have seen it somewhere before. The awe-inspiring eugenist used the precision vision obtained from the superimposition of tens of thousands of compound eyes to carefully observe the gray tentacles that grew out from the back of Han Dong's head. It seemed to be mixed with spots, but in fact, under eugenist precision vision, it was a kind of imprint that constantly changed shape but always followed the rules. Eugenist hurriedly brought out some knowledge from the depths of his mind that came from the ancients and searched them one by one. His brain was like a memory library. A large amount of memory knowledge was stored in an orderly manner and could be searched. In the end, he only found some incomplete information that recorded an abandoned hybrid demon technology. Prison world? The ancient hybrid demons predicted that the world's calamity would come sooner or later and tried to use hybrid demon technology to create a completely independent small world. This research was abandoned for some unknown reason and was later completely replaced by Project Dreamlands. No one cared about it. Only a few ancient and high-level existences could touch on this kind of worldwide project, since such an imprint appeared in the gray tentacles. It seems that the Walker is secretly operating it. Among all the hybrid demons present, only Eugenius, who had top-notch vision and ancient knowledge, could obtain this information. On the battlefield, due to the enhancement of the lonely performer and the tentacle lover, coupled with Toga's own demonic power. In this tentacle tug of war, Han Dong was barely in a disadvantageous state. However, this wasn't a simple confrontation of strength. The isomorphic tentacles that grew out of Sally's body, the hand of the incubated one, also carried the Black Forest's nurturing power. These tentacles pulled at the hinges and slowly wrapped around Han Dong's arms. They would constantly give birth to strange-looking cubs. Some were similar to humans. Some were like lambs. Some of them were twisted and distorted mantis demons. Once Han Dong used Helm magic to attack, the cubs that were slightly stimulated would explode. When the scattered meat and body fluids accidentally splashed onto the surface of Han Dong's arm, it would use Han Dong's meat to form a kind of nurturing body, forcing Han Dong to undergo external fertilization. The cubs would be born within 3 seconds, and the birthing process would extract a large amount of Han Dong's energy. The cubs that were born were exactly the same as the ones that died before. They would continue to force Han Dong, the father, until he couldn't give birth, which was to say he died. This was one of Sally's abilities as the Black Goat. It was also one of the points that other hybrid demons were afraid of. If the target was a human, they wouldn't be able to withstand such a visual impact. A swollen and distorted baby with tentacles growing out of its eye sockets was born from the surface of its body. The baby's cries were mixed with the cries of daddy. Ordinary humans would suffer great psychological trauma and mental pollution. In terms of pollution, it was ranked in the top 5. Contaminated humans would degenerate into the Black Forest's reproductive organs. However, Sally's opponent happened to be an outstanding talent in the field of biology. Han Dong didn't panic at all when faced with the pregnancy on his arm. By injecting some of the remaining G virus in the body, it induced a targeted genetic mutation in the individual. The bulging uterus quickly shrank. You seem to know a lot about this. It was the first time Sally had seen someone who could stop her ability from a biological level. I specialize in biology. The body structure and genetic level of the hybrid demons under my research are not much different from humans. After all, prehistoric humans originated from the hybrid demons. Interesting. However, even if you can stop it, the reproductive cells have already invaded. If this continues, your body will turn into one of my organs sooner or later. Do you still want to continue? Of course. Only by winning this match can I win the final bet for you, Miss Sally. Be careful. While Sally was constantly using her tentacles to inoculate, Han Dong was also doing something small. A tentacle used for tug-of-war quietly extended out and drew a void mark on the tree trunk behind Sally. As soon as he finished speaking, a wild dog that Sally had almost forgotten suddenly jumped out from the bottom of the lake. With Han Dong's reminder, the splashing of water, and the strong aura emitted by Count, Sally reflexively stepped down. Crush! The divine pressure formed by the goat's hooves quickly pressed down. At this moment, Han Dong's finger moved. The void imprint on Sally's back was immediately activated. Whoosh! The Count below suddenly disappeared, teleporting through the void and leaping out from behind Sally. What? Sally's reaction was extremely fast. She immediately strengthened the tentacle armor that covered her body. It could effectively block the incoming blood dog's bite and reduce at least 80% of the damage. However, Count's target was not Sally's main body. It was the arm that grew out from her back. Whoosh. The sharp teeth that were wrapped in death aura and contained nether blood bit down on nearly half of the arm. The broken arm turned into a purple tentacle and fell into the pool below. The pain caused by the destruction of the tentacle caused Sally to fall into an extremely painful state. Void steps. He did not give Sally any chance to adjust. Han Dong instantly appeared in front of her. He pulled out a special fong in Count's mouth and pressed it against his neck. There was holy blood stored in the fong, and a blade that could kill all hybrid demons vaguely appeared. I want Miss Sally. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.